Okay. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WIC TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Gang, have we got a show for you tonight? We have one more guest coming, no opinion. We're just having a little bit of a technical difficulty getting him on the show, but we'll figure that out. As I do so, I'm going to let all these lovely individuals introduce themselves and give you a brief, and I stress this, brief, please, opening statements on your thoughts on the matter. It's a real simple question tonight that we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. How far should the United States go to keep Iran from becoming a nuclear armed state, to keep them from getting a nuclear bomb? Do we trust the intelligence showing that they are working towards it? Or do we trust Tulsi Gabbard, who says that they are not, right? We are having conflicting reports. If we are to intervene, how much should we intervene? All these questions and more. Okay, man, the myth and the legend's here with us today, but we're going to start, ladies and gentlemen, with Pathfinder Jay. Give us what you got.
Sure. Well, thank you very much for having me on. My name is Jay. My YouTube channel is Pathfinder 415. My position is pretty simple. I believe that under no circumstances should the current government of Iran be allowed to possess a nuclear arsenal in any form. While I believe that the nuclear deal that was negotiated by Obama was the most desirable outcome, Trump ended that deal, as we know, and we have to operate with the reality that we live in. Iran is almost certainly working towards a nuclear weapon, and as regrettable as it may be, at this point, the only two options, as far as I can tell, are the theocracy having a nuke and regime change. And unless there's some secret third option, then those are the choices that we have, and of those two, I choose regime change.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. We'll get you as you go. We saw you for a minute there, Noah, but then you disappeared again. But thank you for being here. Okay, Lycan, what you got?
Yeah, so nothing I say tonight is going to be there to heap praise on Iran or excuse state sponsorship of terrorism. But Iran has demonstrated many times over that diplomacy is possible, and that many people on this panel, the broader public, those in chat, I don't think really know Iran's history. So if you get your perception from the media headlines, clips on TV for the last 25 years, sure, you're going to think that Iran is on a death spiral down to a nuclear weapon so they can destroy the Middle East, the United States, and Israel. But at the end of the day, this is just factually untrue. So we're going to talk today about the history of Iran's nuclear policies, the history of Iranian-U.S. diplomacy, and the fact of the matter is that regime change, it doesn't go well, especially when it's done by force or covert action through outside parties, and especially so in the Middle East. We are still dealing with the ramifications today. Just now in Syria, reports are coming out that ISIS is back on the move, and cells are starting to activate within Syria after the fall of Assad. So while many of us will be very happy that Assad is gone and that Syria is working towards reform, we stand today still dealing with the ramifications of that, and that when it comes to Iran, those will be very, very significant as we deal with the fallout from that. So I'm here to say that we should not take any sort of interventionist actions, and that diplomacy is very much still on the table. And I look forward to chatting with everyone and telling y'all why you're wrong.
Okay, it'll be fun. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Counterpoints. Connor, what do you got, sir?
Yeah. Do you know how refreshing it is to not to be the most imperialist person on the panel? It's so nice to have Pathfinder here. Thank you, Pathfinder. So he asked if, he was asking if there was an alternative. Yeah, I think there's an alternative. It's one that's been proposed by the Trump admin, as much as I find it hypocritical and silly, considering they're the candidates of peace. I do think that a limited strike could work. So we do have technology in order to bust bunkers, so to speak. So if that was possible in order to delay a nuclear option, I don't want to take that off of the table. If that could delay Iran, however you want to pronounce it, getting a bomb. And then also, I think that we should go back to the nuclear deal. I think it is disappointing that Trump took that off the table. I think that's the aim that we should get to. I also understand Israel's mistrust of Iran, where just signing a piece of paper saying that they're going to comply with a limited enrichment program doesn't mean that they're actually going to follow through on it. And so making sure that we can actually follow through on a new Iran deal style negotiation would be fantastic. So limited strike is still on the table. Regime change should be grassroots. I don't think that we need a boots on the ground regime change. I think it should come from the Iranian people. And I could yap for another 5 minutes, but I won't. I'll save it for the panel.
Okay, yeah, we'll get into it as we go. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Next up, we got No Opinion. Noah, what are your thoughts here? Iran, do we go in? Do we stay out? What do you think?
Well, I'm kind of against us going in. I think on one hand, is Israel, like Iran had been like sending guys to attack Israel for a while, and then when Israel fought Hezbollah, Iran did lob some missiles at them. On the other, kind of ineffectually. And on the other hand, Israel did start this war. Like Israel, they attacked first. At least in this round, they, majorly escalated and have been, sending fairly large amounts of stuff to blow up Iran's nuclear program, I guess, or maybe do like regime change, maybe, kill the top guys. I don't feel like America has, I wouldn't want, I don't want Iran to get nukes. I think that's not good. I'm a bit of a hypocrite here. I'm for controlled nuclear proliferation. I just think Iran's not a good candidate for it. I think like South Korea, Poland, Japan should get nukes. But so maybe I'm a hypocrite there, just saying like I think these countries should get nukes and these countries shouldn't. But yeah, like I don't know. I don't see why we're needed to get in this war. I don't really. But then again, I'm not really an expert. Like I've heard some people say that Israel needs like this big bunker buster bomb that only we have, or else they can't take out this one nuclear enrichment site at Fordow. That's how that's pronounced. And then on the other hand, Israel said that if we don't give them the bunker buster bomb, they'll use humans, which I assume means they've got a railgun accelerating humans to relativistic speeds and gonna just no, I don't know. I think they're just going to send in guys. I don't know what they're going to do, but the point is that like not too many Israelis or Iranians seem to be getting killed at this point. Like I think it's a couple hundred Iranians and a couple dozen Israelis. It's like not really that big of a war yet, and it doesn't seem like it's going to send the Middle East up in flames and on oil prices we're hedged really. Like it doesn't matter to our economy much whether oil prices go up or down because we produce oil and we about as much as we consume. So like honestly, I don't think I don't see a compelling reason for us to get involved. I mean, like, burden of proof is on people who think that if we don't get involved, like there'll be an imminent Iranian nuclear bomb. If you can prove that to me, I'm not an expert, so if you can prove that to me, fine, okay, maybe then let's think about it. If that's not the case, I don't see any rationale for getting involved here. Not our fight, not our circus, not our monkeys, as they say.
Okay.
I am not an anti-interventionist. I do not think America is an evil empire, but I also think that like our fundamental interests in the Middle East are pretty slim, pretty, thin on the ground.
Understood.
Honestly, at this point.
Understood. No. Okay. So if we can prove that there's a nuclear bomb, Noah's in. If we can't, Noah's out.
No, not necessarily, but I'll think about it. You'll think about it.
Got you. Okay. Last but certainly not least, non-smoker. What are your thoughts? Do we go in? Do we stay out?
No. We stay out. Yeah, in my opinion. I mean, I do think the U.S. is an evil empire. Yeah, I think that history kind of bears that out. I think we've done more harm than good in the name of regime change. I think regime change has been like a pretty consistent foreign policy stance in the U.S. since really the end of World War II. It's not to say that it's never been successful in replacing regimes, but I would argue it's been more unsuccessful than successful in replacing regimes with something that's objectively better. I think the U.S. should absolutely not be involved. It's actually the definition of escalating a conflict, which needs to be de-escalated to preserve human life. I do think Israel provoked the conflict, whether you want to talk about them attacking first or just the years and years of urging by Netanyahu and others within Israel to strike Iran imminently because they're about to have a nuke any day now. We're serious this time. It's going to happen. They're about to launch it. Oh my God. I also think Trump and the U.S. in general are complicit for some of the same reasons I outlined with what I said about Netanyahu. We've been threatening the Iranians for years. We've been engaging, actually, in soft power attempts to initiate regime change there, concurrently with trying to make diplomatic overtures, sending mixed signals, is what I would call it. Of course, they have no reason to trust us. I also think one thing that nobody really touched on, and I'm obviously not a military expert, is that us going into Iran and just initiating regime change by force is a lot easier to say than do. I think Iran is an incredibly complicated place geographically, let alone they're a serious military power, as exemplified by their use of ballistic missiles, striking Israel pretty much every day. I think that, the U.S., which is struggling to stop a renegade group of militants in Yemen from shooting like bottle rockets at ships once every couple weeks, the arrogance that we have to say, well, we could just go into Iran, smash things, destroy everything, and overthrow the regime, easy peasy. I don't think it's that simple. So, yeah, I mean, this is a very complicated topic. Looking forward to discussing with this fine group of gentlemen.
Okay, well, we're looking forward to doing it as well. With that, let's open the floor. Let's get some discussion going. Jay, you seem to have the strongest stance of regime change here being inevitable. Sell it to us, and then we'll, again, it's an open discussion so people can interrupt, talk to you, ask questions,
Sure.
etc. Go ahead.
For sure. Well, I would say that the biggest thing to keep in mind with regime change is that I'm not necessarily advocating for like boots on the ground U.S. troops inside Tehran, like storming the palace and stuff like that. But I do think that there are sufficient ways that through like air power, through sea power, as well as through economic means that we can sort of force popular uprising. Richard Hanania actually just published a really good article about this not too long ago, which I can go into more detail if you'd like. But I want to get into what Noah was just talking about the potential for an imminent threat of a nuclear warhead. And I think that a lot of people have PTSD from the Iraq War, and that makes people very concerned about the legitimacy of nuclear warhead claims. And there are definitely some notable differences in Iran's case than in Iraq's case. For one, the IAEA, which is the International Atomic Energy Agency and the like nuclear organ of the United Nations, they have inspectors, or had inspectors anyway, that would go into Iran, and they estimate that Iran enriches uranium up to about 60% purity. And for reference, I'm not a nuclear scientist, but I believe these numbers are accurate. For civilian use, for like powering cities, you only need to enrich uranium to 3 to 4%. After 20%, you've crossed the threshold for nuclear weapons. So going into 60% is obviously completely unnecessary for any civilian use. Furthermore, they have 9 tons of that we know about anyway. There could be more that we don't know about of enriched uranium that is at that 60% level, which is estimated to be about enough for 9 nuclear bombs. The IAEA, in that same report, the IAEA, sorry, it's a little bit of a mouthful, estimates that if Iran wanted to, they could build a nuclear warhead in as short as 2 days. And I think the fact that Iran has been consistently locking out and increasing pressure on the IAEA inspectors in their country, it certainly, I don't know if that necessarily means that they're currently actively developing a nuclear weapon, like right this very second. However, I do think that it is very suspect. And I will also say that there have been a lot of Iranian spies that have been caught abroad that have been trying to steal nuclear weapon intelligence, specifically from Europe. In the Netherlands, the Dutch caught Iranian spies trying to steal schematics for building nuclear warheads, and I think that given the fact that Iran believes that it's sort of a do or die, if they don't get a nuclear weapon, they essentially will die to Israel, which perhaps there is some argument for that to be made, but I think it's it is certainly reasonable to assume, more so reasonable to assume, that Iran would be pursuing a nuclear weapon than it is with Iraq, because Iraq really had no reason to be doing that at that time. Whereas I do believe there is a lot of reason to assume that Iran could be doing that now. Not just circumstantial, but also, I mean, with regards to the uranium enrichment.
Where did you get that the IAEA said that they could build a weapon within 2 days?
That is from, let me see here. I have that linked. You'll have to give me just 1 second. It is from a report that they wrote. Let me see here.
Are you talking about the one that they released to the United Nations, I believe, on the 31st of May?
Just to solidify the perspective, at minimum, we have, I just Googled the 60% enrichment. That seems to be coming from an official IAEA website. And then also DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, literally just tweeted, I just looked at my phone momentarily, literally just tweeted that based off of their intel assessments, they believe that it's possible for Iran to have a bomb within a couple of weeks or months. So if you want to say 2 days is alarmism, then can we accept a few months as possible?
No, because first of all, the IAEA is
Counterpoints. Whose assessment was that? Sorry,
that was from.
That's DNI Tulsi Gabbard.
Oh, yeah, Tulsi Gabbard said they could have it within a few months.
Yes.
Yeah. So
you can go to her Twitter right now.
The most recent intelligence before all of this kicked off was that they were nowhere near it. And again, that has been a repeated case. The Ayatollah has had a fatwa on nuclear weapons, saying they're anathema to Islam since 2003. And there is no evidence that they have sought to do so. The IAEA report that was released says that they can no longer see that their nuclear program is strictly a civilian nuclear program. The idea that Iran is building a weapon is not borne out in anything. 2007, 2011.
Why would you say that if they're at 60% enrichment and the civilian enrichment is at 3 to 5%?
What is documented is that Iran enriches to those levels to give them cards at the negotiating table.
Wait, hold on. What you're saying is they're not doing the thing, but they're doing the thing up to 60% as a negotiating tact.
Yes.
Wouldn't that just mean that they're developing nuclear warheads? Because that's kind of the ultimate negotiating tactic.
There is a difference between going all the way that way, which would probably actually lead to the kind of action that Iran wants to avoid. Again, like I said in my intro, Iran has shown incredible diplomatic capacity with the United States. The only reason they're enriching to these levels is because Trump pulled out of the JCPOA and Iran has been under constant threat since then.
Okay. You're extending an incredible amount of charity to
I'm going off
Iranian
of
regime.
Intelligence reports.
What's that?
It's just obviously.
I'm going off of the IAEA and intelligence.
It's just obvious. You know this.
It is
the Iranian regime.
100%. It's not just me, by the way. The IAEA agreed with that. They checked into Iran's nuclear program, and they found that Iran was keeping up with everything up until when Trump pulled out in 2018. As soon as Trump pulled out in 2018, they breached both the 300 kilogram stockpile limit and the 3.67% refinement.
Hold on. There's multiple pieces of information that you guys are forwarding.
That's very relevant to today.
No, it's totally relevant.
You wouldn't be in that position.
I want you to recognize that you're forwarding multiple pieces of information here.
He just wants to focus on
one piece of information.
No, okay. So let me walk you through it, though, because I'm going to repeat back to you what you guys just said to me. Up until the Iranian deal, are we going with Iran or Iran? What are we doing?
Pick your poison, brother.
It's pronounced
I'm
Iran.
going to go with Iran.
Let's go with Iran Shah, land of kingdom
Iran.
of the Aryans.
Okay, so the Iran.
Do people know that the word Iran is actually just the word Aryan? It's the same word.
The true master race. So the Iranians. Okay, so we can all. I think even Pathfinder was saying like the nuclear deal under Obama was probably ideal because now you've backed Iran into a corner. So we all agree right there. What you've said and what I heard Lycan say is after the deal, the IAEA was effectively verifying that they were following the deal. And as far as we could see, they were following the deal as maximally as possible. Since then, though, descriptively, what you guys have said, and I think Lycan just said this
wait,
a moment
I
ago,
just want to say this
is
really
he
quick,
enriched
it's gonna
it.
be-
Since the deal has been kaput, they are now enriching to 60%, so they have the capacity. You're saying they don't have the willpower to create a bomb. They don't have the desire to create a bomb, but they're doing it as a negotiating tact. Do I
Yes, and
understand
also
your
I just-
perspective correctly?
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, but I also want to clarify, not just to the best of their abilities, to a fucking T. IAEA report one after the other up until Trump pulled it out. The very last report was they have done everything we fucking asked, met every deadline. The only complaint they had was they could respond to our calls a little quicker. But other than that,
know, okay, just to clarify, I hate Trump with every fiber of my being. So I'm not a Trump dick suck who's like, itching to go to war with Iran. Okay, that's not the thing, right? What is going on, though, is that I think that descriptively, you guys are assuming on faith that Iran doesn't have a desire to have a bomb. And what Pathfinder and I are saying is that if you're at 60% enrichment, then you have the capacity to get to a bomb within a few weeks or months, which is confirmed by our intelligence agencies.
no. First of all, I will say this. We've all seen the Trump sycophancy and the way this administration works. We've seen the way that people step out of line and get fucking reeled back in. As a non-official governmental but relevant example, the fucking Elon Musk fallout and then him coming crawling back to daddy, right? So the other day, just yesterday or some shit, fucking Tulsi Gabbard or Trump gets called out and says, "Hey, your fucking DNI says this ain't true, chief." And he says, "Oh, well, she's wrong." And then she fucking tweets that, "I'm sorry." When every report...
It's not just a tweet, it's video clips of her talking about it.
Sure, but point being is she comes out and makes...
But also, aren't you saying that they're at 60%?
No, hold on. That they're at... I'm sorry, maybe I conflated something. They're at 60%, but that they're making weapons when, again, historically and modern intelligence says that they are not making weapons and not...
Hold on, please.
That's not what's being said. What's being said is they
Counterpoint.
could manufacture a bomb.
They couldn't.
Hold on. I have a question.
Wait, no, hold on. Don't derail this, Wick.
Don't derail. You're going in circles. Go ahead, please.
No, we're not going in circles. Nuclear weapon or nuclear bomb, like a nuke, a Hiroshima. What are we talking? Are we talking a dirty bomb or what? Because yes, they could go make a fucking dirty bomb right now. Are we talking about a nuke? Because when you say nuke, when people say nuclear weapon, they're not thinking dirty bombs. They're thinking Hiroshima, right? They're thinking
what is the negotiation? Because you say that they just hit my mic. You say that they have uranium enriched at 60% just for negotiation tactics, but you're also, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you're saying, but it's also just useless, the uranium that they have. So how?
No, I'm not saying it's useless. But I will say that Iran again has. Up until very recently, since 2003, complied with inspectors. They have complied with regulations.
I agree.
And you know who hasn't? Israel, who went behind our backs and created a nuclear arsenal, has not signed the non-proliferation treaty. Pakistan, who we also have to contend with, who is a state sponsor of terror, who used Al-Qaeda for their wars in Kashmir, who Iran, everyone likes to say, has killed soldiers in Iraq and Syria or whatever. Has only killed dozens of American soldiers, where Pakistan, who gave safe harbor to the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and the Haqqani network, is directly responsible for about 2,000 deaths of American soldiers.
But if you're
they
saying
sponsored terrorism.
Why would we want another Pakistan?
Because we found a way to engage with Pakistan, and it can't just be because we needed them. We can't just go selectively apply that shit. If this is so fucking serious, when our allies do not comply with nuclear treaties as well as fucking Iran does. So our casus belli for war and regime change is going to be going in for this shit. Then we should be bombing fucking North Korea.
I'm not going to concede this. I'm not going to concede this.
Okay, but I do have some information that might be helpful to the conversation that I want to cover, because the most recent IAEA, so the International Atomic Energy Agency, I think is the acronym here, was on the 31st of May of this year. Okay, it was declassified or de-restricted on 11th of June of this year. And from their summary, this is what they say. Oh, I had it up. Hold on. There we are. So it says that Iran's decision to remove all of the agency's equipment previously installed in Iran for JCPOA-related surveillance and monitoring activities has also had detrimental implications for the agency's ability to provide assurance of the peaceful nature of Iran's nuclear program. It has also been more than 4 years since Iran stopped provisionally applying its additional protocol. Therefore, throughout this period, Iran has not provided updated declarations, and the agency has not been able to conduct complementary access to any sites and other locations in Iran. And the significantly increased production and accumulation of highly enriched uranium by Iran, the only non-nuclear weapon state to produce such nuclear material, is of serious concern. So given that this is the most recent report, right, that we have from an agency that isn't connected, at least I don't believe, to Trump or his intelligence apparatus, if they're concerned, why shouldn't we be?
Because there's a difference between enrichment and creating a bomb. Again, when we talk bomb, yes, you can go make a dirty bomb. No one's talking about that. They're talking about fucking nukes. And again, Iran signed the non-proliferation treaty.
What are they missing? So Lycan, you're being frustrating because what are they missing? If they have a civilian rocketry program, if they have enriched uranium up to 60%, if subject matter experts within the United States government are saying that within a few weeks or a few months, they could produce a bomb, what is this missing component of technology that you are saying they are incapable of developing?
Why do you think they haven't produced one yet?
Me or him?
Oh, hold on. Ask again, non-smoker, please.
I'm asking Lycan
what's based on the knowledge at hand, why do you think they have not produced uranium beyond 90% yet? What do you think the reason is for that?
Well, because we could hopefully bring them back to the JCPOA and the negotiations.
Yeah, stuff. For negotiations.
Sure,
yeah,
exactly.
Sure,
but at the same time, what we're talking about is potentially them doing that and us not being able to know. So what I'm asking
intelligence is they're going to. I'm answering your question. Where is the intelligence?
One step left. What's that?
I'm answering your question. It's not the step. It's not about the technology. It's where's the intelligence that they want to make a bomb, that they are trying to make a bomb, that they are going to make a bomb. Where is that?
Well, I would say probably over the past 20 or 30 years, they've had like an enriched nuclear weapons program.
No, they haven't. They stopped it in 2003.
Yes, they have. They've literally recruited a bunch of stuff.
No, hold on.
You guys are saying two different things.
Hold on.
Are we forgetting Stuxnet? Are we forgetting the assassination programs during the 2010s? What the fuck are we talking about here?
Yeah, they had killed some nuclear scientists, all right? Since 2003, they have not had it. And it has been confirmed by the United States Intelligence... No, stop, because you're not listening when I say this. The United States Intelligence Committee, the National Intelligence Assessments of 2007, 2011, multiple various random fuck reports since then, before then, have said, yeah, dog, they have not done any shit when it comes to nuclear weapons. They are not doing it, period.
Why are you extending this level of charity to the Iranian regime when in
I'm going off the government. How are you saying it's charity to them? Okay. Why aren't you giving charity to the United States intelligence community?
Because I am an American. I work for the United States of America.
Why, hold on. So let's assume.
Why would I be endlessly charitable to my enemies when I should be endlessly charitable to my friends and my allies? What the fuck?
Not charity. I'm pointing to a source of fucking the intelligence community.
And I'm telling you that there's contradictory evidence.
The IAEA has been in there and doing inspections. Again, 2015, they didn't come and say, actually, we just started inspecting. They've got a new
They have not been doing that recently.
This conversation so far, which is fine. It's spicy. That's good. However, the reason why I don't like this conversation so far is because I've logically walked you up to they have the capacity. We're not talking about intent.
I don't care about capacity.
About capacity.
The capacity is already qualified.
Capacity.
All right, let's stop capacity. Capacity. They have the capacity. Why do they have the capacity? Because they want to be able to negotiate.
Okay. So
you have to provide something else if you want to go further.
Let's work back from capacity then, since we can say that within, let's just say 60 days, they could create a nuclear device hypothetically. Let's move back to motivation then. Okay?
Sure.
Okay. So moving to motivation, I understand what you're saying, which is effectively, if they wanted it, they would have had it. Am I wrong in saying that that's basically your position?
If we're talking about a dirty bomb, yes.
Okay. So what I would say is, I'm not really betting the future of the United States on Iran having a bomb or Iran having a bomb.
Okay? Says because they are not an existential threat to the United States.
Even if they develop 9 nuclear warheads, I don't think like Central Florida is on their top 10.
No, hold on. Wait, again, if we're going to go to nuclear warheads, then I am going to start talking about technology and better intelligence and all that shit. If we're going to stick with dirty bombs, I'll say it's not going to do anything.
Dirty bombs still irradiate a city and kill tens of thousands of people?
Sure, it can if it can reach us. But again, our intelligence says they're not trying to do that shit.
Okay.
Why do you not
think that they should be doing like detonating
What's that?
Why do you not trust Iran? Is it just like the fact that it's a theocracy and authoritarian? Is that the main reason? Well, what about Saudi Arabia? Do you trust them?
Saudi Arabia is tied to our economy. They are interested in being our allies. They've also said the reasons why they don't want to
Iran is not
nukes
interested
because
in
the
being
United
tied
States
to the
has
global
nukes and will
economy?
back
That's
them.
why they don't want sanctions, which is why they signed on to the JCPOA to begin with.
Sorry, you're saying is Iran acting in its natural self-interest?
I think
Is that the
Iran
question?
has economic interests just like any country. So the
Yeah, and their
reason that they
economic
signed
interests
on
are
to the
also tied
JC,
to
the reason
dystopian shitholes
I
like
think the
China and
reason you're
Russia.
not hearing people is because you won't shut the fuck up.
No,
The
I'm
reason
listening.
Iran signed on to the JCPOA to begin with is they wanted to avoid sanctions so that they could have a beneficial economic relationship with the West also. So who's to say that had we not kept that agreement around and maintained this better relationship with Iran, that they couldn't also eventually integrate into our economy? Saudi Arabia wasn't always a good friend of ours either, and that changed because the economics favored them to have a better relationship with us.
Okay,
I kind of think
because
I think
let's give it to
NS,
Noah for a minute. Go ahead.
you're probably right, but I think that ship's probably sailed.
That's the
hasn't.
point that
Can you
I've
elaborate
been
on- hold on,
making.
just real quick.
That ship is gone.
Just
That's a
real
different
quick,
argument.
I'm gonna have to mute people.
Well, then
after
why-
this. Noah,
Okay.
why has it sailed? Can you elaborate on that?
I mean, we killed Soleimani. We did that. We did, blew up some other Iranian stuff. I think that now, but not just that, the reason Iran wants a nuclear bomb, and if I were them, I'd want a nuclear bomb for sure. Like the reason why, it's only rational for them to want a nuclear bomb. The reason they want a nuclear bomb is to fight Israel, maybe to blow up Israel, but definitely to deter Israel from blowing them up, as Israel's currently doing. I think that the after what we've seen with this war, the vulnerability that Iran has in conventional weapons, there's not, to me, if I were in charge of Iran, I would be like, okay, whatever the America would give us, in this deal, whatever they were going to give us in 2017 or 18 or whenever, we're not going back to that, because now we see what Israel's willing to fly over and do to us, and nukes are the only thing that can deter that.
That is, first of all, at the very least, you're talking about deterrence more so than aggression, because the history.
Yeah, no, I don't think they want to start a nuclear war. I don't think they're nuts like that. But if I were them, I'd want a nuclear bomb right now, because I'd be like, holy shit, look what happens when we don't have a nuke. So at this point, I would not make a deal that would involve me not getting a nuke if I were them.
And that would be reasonable, except, so first, again, I'll repeat, and this isn't meant condescending, let me repeat myself, but again, intelligence has shown that they don't want to get a nuclear bomb. They don't have a program to get a nuclear bomb. They're not working towards it. The enrichment of uranium does not equate to making a bomb. It is, again, intelligence. Hold on, wait, I'm going to finish my point. I'm saying I'd do it. Wait, hold on, dude. Let's say that literally in a fucking shell, you just take some duct tape and you strap on a big fucking Coke bottle full of uranium, and then when it explodes, that's how you make the dirty bomb. I don't know. By the way, FBI, I'm sorry for saying that out loud. I don't know if that was right. But
we're gonna have to edit this part out. But go ahead.
You fucking do that, right? Let's say it is that. Again, there is no intelligence that has ever said that they want to fucking do that. And so what I want. Hold on. Let me finish.
I'm going to narrow my question. I want to narrow my question.
Go ahead.
Let's just say, let's not talk about motivation. Let's just talk about technology. Okay.
I don't care. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't care if they can do it, because let's say that they could do it right now. I do not care.
But you keep saying that they can't.
No.
So don't make that assertion.
They can't make a nuclear warhead. They cannot make a nuclear warhead. But I'm saying if they can make a dirty bomb. Why are you
saying that?
I don't care if they can. I'm
okay, then don't say that
they
can't. Say that you don't care that they can or cannot.
I am saying that it's intent. There is no intelligence that they have an intent to.
Okay. And what I am telling you, which is frustrating me in this conversation, because I feel like if you listen to me, you can understand what the fuck I'm saying, is that they have 60% enriched uranium. They have a rocketry program.
Yes.
Ignore intent for 30 seconds. You keep saying that they cannot do this. They cannot build a nuclear warhead. And I'm asking you, if they have a sophisticated rocketry program, and if they can enrich uranium to 95%, then what is the missing component where you keep saying that they can't do it?
No, you're not listening to me, because I'm not. You're not listening to me, because literally in the last time when I responded to you, I literally said they could make the fucking dirty bomb. They can do it. They can do it. They can do it.
No,
Connor,
not dirty bomb.
Okay, yeah.
Not dirty
Hold
bomb.
on. Connor's talking about nuclear warheads.
They cannot. They cannot make a nuclear warhead. They do not have the technology.
Why are
they
you
do not have
saying
the
that?
program. Because the intelligence has said that they do not have a program. It would take a long fucking time for them to build it. They have not been working on it.
I am literally asking you.
Wait, I'm
they
sorry.
have two
There's
pieces
the panel.
necessary to build a nuclear bomb. What is the component
there's a
that's
whole bunch
missing
of-
that you're
There's
saying?
a whole bunch of other shit. The fucking when you build a nuclear bomb, you enrich the fucking uranium. You need the heavy water and all this other fucking shit. You enrich.
They
to a
have that
certain
part.
point. Hold on. No, you need to get it up a lot fucking higher than 60, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong.
You
I
gotta
will
get it
admit
to,
that.
like,
I'm
90
pretty sure you
anyway.
gotta
90
get
to
to
95, which
90.
they have the capacity
Exactly.
to do so.
So they have the capacity to get it to that point. They haven't yet done it yet, which I think you acknowledge, or at least the guy down in the corner in the red shirt acknowledged. Sorry, I
According
can't
to the
remember
most
your name.
recent intel, but the
And-
intelligence agency
Hold on.
says that they can do it within
Hold on,
60
hold on.
days.
I'm drawing the whole picture for you, bud. So they
I'm listening.
fucking, let's say they go ahead and fucking do that. You then have to create the trigger, right? Because it's not just you put the thing in a bomb, whatever. There is a certain amount of fucking explosive design that you have to do so that it triggers and makes all those atoms fucking at the right time, right? There's a
You're talking about
and you're saying
centrifuge,
Iran
right?
is not capable of doing that?
I would like to interject just real quick and just
I'm
say
pretty
that
sure
in
they're
this
capable.
I'm not saying they
IA,
aren't capable.
hold on.
I'm
I would
saying
like
they
to-
hold
don't
on,
have the
hold
weapons
on.
program.
Hold
I'll
on.
Google it.
Pathfinder wants in. He's been a very good boy. We're gonna give him treats.
Thank
Here's a
you,
mic.
thank you.
Go
I
ahead, Path.
have a hard time interrupting people, so
Elbows.
I would just like to note that in this IAEA report, which it seems like we're all pretty much in consensus is a legitimate piece of evidence to discuss here, they say, quote, Iran's nuclear weaponization program is steadily making progress out of sight of the inspectors and the world. That is the most recent.
That's
piece
weaponizing
of-
uranium. That is not weaponized.
That's not what it says. It says
creating
Iran's
nuclear
nuclear
material.
weaponization program. It's a program
Use
for
the
the
word
weaponization.
weaponization, like, and he's kind of got
It's
you.
very clear. It's very
No,
clear.
no,
What
weaponization. Yes, it is.
They would
Weaponization.
specify, they would
Said the word
specify that it's just
weaponization. That's not
uranium
unclear.
because later on in the report, they do go out of their way to specify when it's uranium. There is one other thing. We can get back to this in a second, but there is one other thing that I want to go back to real quick, which is something that Noah brought up, which is if I were Iran, I would want a nuclear weapon right now. And I agree. If I was in Iran's position, I would absolutely want a nuclear weapon right now too. So I think it's. I hope that we all agree that that's common sense.
I don't know if they still
No,
do.
I don't.
You don't agree that right now Iran would want
No,
a
I
nuclear
think
weapon?
that they've actually made multiple overtures at this point to try and sit down for negotiations. In fact, they talked today. And I think what came out of that was like a demand for a move towards zero enrichment, which Iran refuses. It's a non-starter for them.
Yeah, but didn't they also demand that the Israelis give up all of their shit as well? Wasn't that a part of the Iranian position, which is also not going to happen? You're saying they're negotiating in good faith?
I think
the Iranians are willing to negotiate not having a nuclear warhead, which is why they haven't developed one yet, despite having the technology to develop one for years. It's always been about negotiating.
Then why does
It's
the
always been about
IAEA
negotiating.
report say that they are specifically currently developing a nuclear weaponization program? And again, I would like to point out that later on in the report, it goes on to differentiate just uranium and weaponization. If you want me to, I can link you the report, Lycan. But it's the word weaponization. I don't see how it gets any more specific than that.
The reason why I don't like that we keep getting hung up on this is because if you were willing to say that you don't have evidence in order to support the fact that you say that they can't do it within 60 days, we could just move past it and talk about intent. But the whole reason why I'm wrapped up on this with Pathfinder is the fact that we are saying that they are capable, not that they want to. We are saying at minimum, we need to come to some kind of descriptive consensus that they are capable of developing a tactical nuclear weapon within like 60 days, because that seems to be descriptively what everybody is saying. So if you want to talk about like will or negotiation, we can talk about that, but we're trying to get capacity nailed down.
Well, they definitely have the capacity. I mean, I have
Okay,
like
we
a
have
lot
one
of
with
sources on
capacity.
that.
Does Lycan agree that there's capacity?
to make a nuclear warhead? No, I've seen no intelligence on that. And
Well, to enrich uranium
these two
past
should fight it.
90%.
Maybe we could put a pin in it,
They
but I'm
absolutely
going to
do.
How about so Lycan and we're not like dogs at the fence barking at each other. Why don't I just say my position and then I'll try to steel man his and then we can try to move past it, okay? So my position
is he really
yeah.
saying, sorry to interrupt, but is he really saying they can't enrich past 90%? That's like widely known thing.
Lycan, you're saying they can't?
no, I'm saying they can enrich past 90%. I'm saying they haven't.
Okay, so I'm
Right,
gonna
so they're
I'm gonna say
capable.
my steel man. I'm gonna say my steel man. My steel man is that what I'm hearing from Lycan is I feel like we can enrich to 90%, so we can have weapons grade uranium. The Iranians have a sophisticated technological base, so they should be able to create a sophisticated nuclear weapon and ballistic missiles. So they have the components. If they wanted to, if this was a meal, they could make the meal. Okay, that's what I'm saying. What I feel like Lycan is saying is that he's saying like, well, they couldn't make the meal. They could make what's the meat board with like cheese and meats and shit.
I know what you're talking about.
You could make Lycan saying they could make a nuclear charcuterie. And I'm saying no, they could make a fucking sandwich. And we keep getting hung up on that. But I don't feel like that's the most interesting
it's really
part of the
stupid
conversation.
that you guys are stuck on this. We could move past this really quickly. They're capable of doing it. The question is, do they want to?
Sure. I would be happy to move to that.
I just think it's really important to also point out that that there is no intelligence saying they actually have a program to do so. So they can do it. So it's like whether or not they can do it, whether or not they want to do it, and whether or not they are doing it. Those are the three pieces.
Sorry, Wick, go ahead.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We've decided they're capable. You're President Trump, right? Or if I'm President Trump, and I know that Iran, first of all, do we agree that Iran and its current state and its current regime is at least ill-inclined towards the United States and towards Israel?
No.
You don't agree with that?
Well, what do you mean?
Agree with that?
Because the way you mean it is the idea that them chanting "Death to America" means they want us to be fucking genocided and wiped off the fucking earth. Am I wrong?
They are.
I feel like you're
really different.
What I mean when I say that they are ill-inclined towards America is I mean towards our interests in the region and towards us in general, right? Our
be more specific.
That's obviously true. Yeah,
our interests in the region. Yeah, because interventionism and shit like that. Okay, I'm not mad at them for being against that.
Okay, so if they can make a nuclear weapon of any sort, whether it be dirty bomb, nuclear weapon, whether it be something that they can propel on not an ICBM, but on a cruise missile, or whether it's something they got to smuggle in and detonate, or whether it's something they drop from a plane, doesn't matter, right? If they have that, and I'm president of the United States, and I say if they have that, then that limits our options against if we want to do anything to Iran, if they go against her, if they attack our base, if they bomb a fucking ship, or if they fund money into one of their proxies, or they give the fucking bomb to one of their proxies to blow up one of our bases, right? I don't want them to do that. So I don't care what they want to right now. I don't want them to be able to do that. So why wouldn't I? Hey, here's some bunker buster bombs. Go at it. Why not?
I got this one. Because you have no reason to believe they would. Iran in the last 20 years, from everything that I can find, has never themselves done an attack as an act of aggression. It has always been an act of retaliation. They have never done that shit to a U.S. base or to fucking Israel.
But who have they
fund
funded?
Groups that do.
Have done?
They
it's
are
funny.
fun and
It's
train
funny
groups
you
that
bring
do.
that up. It's funny you bring that up again, and this is why at the beginning I said I will not be excusing state sponsorship of terrorism, but I said you will have to contend with the fact that we've supported Pakistan and partnered with them when they were doing the same shit. So yeah, first of all, again, dozens of people killed by Iranian-sponsored groups for as far as Americans go, 2,000-ish by Pakistan, and yet we were still able to fucking work with them. So that's the first point.
No, okay, but because we're talking about like what? We're talking about Afghanistan, and then we're talking about the Middle East and North Africa. That you're comparing those two theaters of operations.
I am, yes, absolutely. I'm saying the fact that
I don't have autism, so I can compare like multiple things. So hold on. The context of this though is that Iran spends $1 billion a year, 700 million estimated on Hezbollah, and then 300 million on random friendly militias, including the Houthis and Hamas.
Mm-hmm. Why did they do that? Why did they do that?
Popular mobilization forces in Iraq too.
Because the United States fucks with their shit, because 2/3 of the world's proven oil reserves are in the Middle East and North Africa. And also Israel is a settler colonial project, quote unquote, that is fucking stabbing them in the ass with a thorn.
Yes, they act as a deterrent. And the 2019 defense. Hold on.
It's not.
Oil interests aren't going away.
I don't care about the oil
neither is
interests.
Israel.
I don't care about the oil interests. You want to talk about why they do that? It's a deterrent strategy. Both our Defense Department, our State Department, and even Israel has acknowledged that this is set up as a deterrent to make some sort of equilibrium in the region. So when Iran is constantly being threatened by Israel,
Aren't these proxies go on the offensive?
I think.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
they
October
do.
7th was an offensive. That wasn't a
They
defensive posture.
absolutely do. And so
think
one
there's
of the
another reason
reasons
they
to
do
not one of the reasons to not decapitate Iran right now is because all the proxies that they have supported have fucking batteries and they can run on their own. So you take off Iran, you take off the group, you install someone that is going to put someone in power that is going to be aligned with the US and Israel and all that other shit, and those fucking groups go off in the wind and do whatever they want. They're not getting dismantled. They're not fucking disappearing. They're going to splinter.
Anyway,
why would they not? Why would they
Okay,
not dismantle? Well, hold on, because this is important, and I genuinely, I'm perfectly willing to accept that maybe that is true. But from my perspective, the sole supplier, financier, and organizer of these organizations, with maybe a handful of exceptions, is the government, the theocracy of Iran. So if Iran goes belly up, if the government of Iran goes belly
That's
up,
not true.
why would these
Are you
organizations?
saying all the proxy groups are only funded by Iran?
I'm saying that they're the overwhelming primary financier and backer of those organizations is Iran. Yes.
I mean, Iran is a major backer of all those groups, no doubt, but there's obviously like countries in the Arabian Peninsula. There's money coming from all over the place that fund those groups, and they
Do they
are
have-
independent actors as well. I mean,
Well, they're semi-independent
look,
actors.
the
You're talking
argument,
about
the argument that they're all kind of
finish up, then we're going to
extensions-
give it to Noah, then we're going to give it
Okay,
to yeah.
The
Okay,
Houthis
well, just-
are Iran's only real effective proxy left in the region. The Iraqi militias that they try to sponsor don't really do much, and Iraq doesn't really help Iran at all. Hezbollah has been essentially defeated. Hamas never could really do that much and has now been essentially defeated. Like, there's not many Iranian
this is true, bud.
I mean, people were saying the same thing. People were saying the same thing about ISIS. People were saying the same thing about ISIS, and ISIS is now coming back in Syria.
I don't want you guys to
hold on. That's not true.
Houthis are the only.
Oh, hold on.
real
I'm sorry.
effective
My
ISIS
honor
is
has
not
been
making a
impugned.
resurgence on like the scope and scale that it had. I
Yeah,
understand.
not
that
yet.
Syria's having some
Not
problems.
yet. But
What
look
do you
at
mean
what
not
the
yet?
situation
Dude,
is in Syria.
cares?
Hold on. Wait.
Who
Look at what
cares?
led to
I don't care.
ISIS. Look at fucking Iraq and what fucking led to that. And now what's happening in Syria is we have loyalists, sectarian violence, infighting going on right now. We have a government that's trying to go through a transition to a new phase, a new era, whatnot. We have Israel attacking certain military targets, and then we have, which again has a historical effect of destabilization. And then we have ISIS sales that were just announced on June 12th as starting to awaken. Reports are coming out about this. So yes, right now, no, they're not at that level. But what we've seen historically in this region is this type of destabilization can do that. And so you go ahead and destabilize Iran, and you sorry, let me calm down.
What is the destabilization in Syria that led to ISIS coming back? Was it the opposition winning? Is that the destabilization?
It was the fall of the Assad regime after fucking a decade plus of civil war.
Right. Okay. And
yeah, but like this is like having a forest fire burn through, and then you're like, oh, there's embers, and it's like, yeah, no shit, but we don't have anywhere near the fuel that we did before the forest fire.
No, because if you take out Iran, right? Iran is not capable of projecting.
Iran could be pouring gasoline on the entire situation. I agree.
Except they don't. First of all, Iran has been an adamant opposition to fucking ISIS.
No, I'm saying a collapsed Iran could create the destabilization that is effectively a new jet fuel on top of the civil war inferno of the region. Yes, that's true.
Yes, and we have every reason to believe that should we go in and drop a bomb on the Ayatollah's house, that one, the loyalists are still going to go down fighting and they're not going to stop. Two, people have been saying lately that the propaganda messages started going out immediately, like that Iran wants revolution, they want to fucking fall. No, they're fucking circling the wagons now around the government and in opposition to the attacks that are happening. Okay, so the regime's going to go down fighting. The people are going to be devastated in the war that follows. And yes, it is going to then lead to more terrorism, more groups spawning, more support for ISIS.
Neither Pathfinder nor I think any sitting politician who has used regime change has suggested Western forces going into Iran. I don't think anybody suggested that. I think the most that they've talked about is limited strikes in order to limit their nuclear capacity, and then supporting like democratic forces. And I hear you that supporting the pro-democratic forces could start a civil war that destabilizes the entire region. I hear you completely. But what I don't hear from you, and I don't hear from lefties who are critical of the war on terror, rightfully so, is that modern Iraqis prefer modern Iraq to Saddam's regime. They still blame the United States for the bloodshed that happened over the past 2 decades, but they prefer modern Iraq over the authoritarian dictatorial shithole that it was 20 years ago.
And like I said at the beginning, the Ayatollah is not Hussein. He is not Assad, right? So that doesn't excuse all of the human and civil rights issues that exist within Iran and all that stuff. But historically, first of all, let's go back to 2002. Does anyone on the panel know about the offer that was made to the United States in 2002?
By whom?
You'd have to be more
specific. By Iran.
2003.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
You'd have to be more specific.
I know.
So Iran offered to not only defund but dismantle actively Hezbollah, stop funding Hamas and other proxies. They offered to stop all enrichment and weapons programs and all that stuff that go beyond civil necessity. They offered to recognize Israel in a 2-state solution. They offered to continue helping. Oh, by the way, for those who don't know in the panel and the audience, by the way, Iran was one of the first countries to condemn the attacks on 9/11, and more so than our ally Pakistan in that war, was providing intelligence on Al-Qaeda, was unrestrained in their detainment of Al-Qaeda that were fleeing into Iran from Western Afghanistan. And they were the reason. They were the reason that
what did
Northern
Bush
Alliance
say to that offer?
No, hold on. I'm going to get there. Don't worry. And then they were the reason that Afghanistan ever had a fighting fucking chance of survival. Then again, Pakistan fucking fucked it up for us, along with our own policies. But they were the reason the Northern Alliance agreed to a multi-ethnic government in Afghanistan and aligned with Karzai. That doesn't happen without fucking Iran, right? So first of all, again, that's not the heap praise on Iran. That's to point the fuck out that these people have been rational at some points in their lives with us. So then that offer gets sent through the intermediary, and fucking Cheney says, not even worth considering. And how does Iran find that out? Because our dude was sitting in the fucking room ready to have tea with the fucking dude he was going to negotiate with, and he gets pulled out of the fucking meeting and gets told, Bush just called us part of the axis of evil, walks in and says, we're done here. And that was fucking it. And yet they still fucking went and...
I can already go ahead and tell you why. Did you say this is 2002 or 2008?
It's 2003.
2003. And I'll tell you why, which I think the lefties are going to find surprisingly conciliatory. It's because Bush didn't want peace with Iran.
Exactly.
Because he knew he was going into Iraq 30 seconds later, and that there would probably be Iranian proxies who would fight us in Iran. So we can't ink a new peace deal with the neighbors of Iraq when we're probably going to be fighting in 6 months.
No, but they would have tried with us.
There's totally Machiavellian vampiric shit that happened. Like Cheney and Rumsfeld, as far as I can tell, might actually be like the manifestation of vampires in human form as close to metaphorically as possible while being real. You know what I'm saying?
I'm just super confused
And
what this has to do with the nuclear, with Iran today.
That's exactly what I want to...
The main point was that they're more rational than the Western media gives him credit for. I heard what he said. I acknowledge what he said.
It is not irrational to want a nuclear weapon. Rationality has nothing to do with this conversation.
Well, not just
okay,
a nuclear weapon.
Hold on. The passage of time
as well.
Let me speak.
It's to be open to Western engagement, but go ahead, Knox.
Non-smoker, he means. I don't know why you're
non-smoker. Sorry, again, there's no names on the thing.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So yeah, just real quick. So the Bush administration turned that deal down, and then of course within 3 years, Iran had 18 times as many centrifuges as they did in 2003. The Bush administration reached out in 2006 to try to establish another agreement. But they again demanded zero enrichment, and the Iranians said no. And by 2009, Obama's first term, Iran had over 8,000 centrifuges. And I think what I'm trying to get at here is that once again, the Iranians are demonstrating that they will pursue enrichment at greater and greater and greater levels where diplomacy fails. So therefore, the cure to them enriching uranium is probably through diplomacy, which is what the Obama administration achieved with the original Iran nuclear deal, which Trump fucked up. And that's why we're in this position. I hope that's something we can all agree on.
I don't disagree with that. I don't think anybody in this well, I guess I don't want to speak for everybody, but I don't think that anybody in this panel disagrees with that. But I think what the contention is the relevance of that now, and to what degree Iran is still willing to negotiate with the United States. Now, listen, I would love to put back on the shelf the Obama nuclear deal. I think that was a great deal. It wasn't, entirely perfect, but when you're dealing with two nations that aren't entirely friendly, it's about building.
Can I just ask you a question?
Yeah,
What do you think and none of us are like Iran experts, although we're pretending to be, but like, in your opinion, how has the calculus changed from Iran's end? Like from 2003, 2006, that era, till even the first Obama administration, where they were willing to cap enrichment at use for civilian means only, nuclear power and such, 3.67%. How do you think that has changed now? Like, do you think now they're just determined we have to have a weapon and use it? Because all of the problems in the region were essentially the same then.
No, I think that what Counterpoints just said is basically the crux of the argument. Is I think that we have fucked them over too many times to make them to make them see us as a reliable negotiating party. And again, I want to emphasize, I'm not. Listen, dude, I loathe Trump more than anybody in this panel. I have terminal stage 10
thing later.
TDS.
We get it.
Okay?
Everyone hates Trump. Blah blah blah.
But
right.
the point that I'm trying to make is that I'm not like just trying to dick ride the United States endlessly and say like, we're the good guys and Iran is, like the supreme evil bad guys. But what I am saying is that Iran, even maybe this is crazy, but in my opinion, even with Donald Trump as horrible as he is, as the president of the United States, still has moral authority over the theocracy in Iran. And I believe that there is. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Wait, can I just
answer? Hold on, isn't the answer here
you?
simple? Like I feel like we're just dancing around it. Israel's attacking them. Israel's bombing them right now. Why would you not want a nuclear weapon so they don't bomb you again?
Well, and that's ultimately what I'm getting at. Listen, the United States and Israel have been unreliable. It's not about
United. Hold on, stop,
Iran.
Please, stop. It's not about the United States in this equation for them. Iran and Israel have been fucking with each other for a long time, and Israel, at least under Netanyahu, at least in the last few years, especially since October 7th, has demonstrated that they want to fuck Iran up. They want to, and they can, and they've been doing it. So if I'm Iran, why wouldn't I want a nuclear weapon that can reach Israel and say...
I mean, you might want one. But I'm not going to believe it until intelligence shows they're doing it. And when looking at that report, first of all, weaponization just means the weaponization of uranium. I have not find anything else to counter that. Not the Reuters reports or anything like that. No, wait, hold on. Again, the intelligence is that they do this. Even the IAEA says this. Is that they do this to get a bargaining chip at the table. So if the U.S. comes in and they make a new agreement and they agree to that agreement, then they're going to fucking that's going to come with an agreement that, hey, you take your dogs off us and that Israel doesn't fucking attack us anymore, right?
It's entirely possible.
The only reason that the agreement was not fucking agreed to right away is, and I don't fucking blame them, read the agreement. Read what it requests of them. Trump sends that agreement along with the fucking threat of, hey, we're going to fuck your shit up if you don't agree to this. He's been doing that shit to our fucking allies. I don't know why we expect even our enemies to fucking take that bullshit. But second of all, it gives no deference to the fact that Iran has been, more so than many of our allies, in agreement with fucking international nuclear requirements, right? So they agreed and followed the JCPOA to a T. They have worked with us. They will do it again. If Trump put a reasonable deal, he wouldn't even let up on some sanctions. So if they do a reasonable deal that actually gives deference to the fact that they have worked with us before, they're ready to come to the fucking table. They were at the table when the fucking first Israeli bomb was dropped. They were at the fucking table.
I love that idea, but I don't foresee that Trump is going to do that. And this is what I said in my opening statement. Listen, I'm just trying to operate within the reality that we find ourselves in. Okay. Listen, I would much rather have a legitimate workable deal with Iran, but I think all of us know that there's 0% chance that that's going to happen with Donald Trump as president. He doesn't want to
have a nuclear armed Iran than an invasion of.
I don't know if that's 100% either.
Hold on. Can you repeat that? Hold on. Stop.
No, I want to. You can mark
Can you
that down, and we
repeat
can
that?
go into that as part of conversation. I want to let him say his thing because I'm happy to
I
defend
just
what I
want
just
you to
said.
repeat that so everyone hears
Yep,
what you
I
said.
am much more happy with a nuclear-armed Iran than I am with us going in and doing regime change with boots on the ground.
That was
Same.
never my position, and that's not anybody's position in this panel.
Well, it might be
Fine.
Wick's because he seemed to want to make me say that.
All
again.
right,
Like,
no,
I'll be happy
crazy.
to attack that momentarily, but non-smoker has been patiently waiting, and I appreciate his patience.
Thanks.
Non-smoker.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, a couple things. One, like, I don't know if I'm 100% confident that Trump will absolutely not work out a deal with the Iranians where Israel stops attacking them and there is no nuclear weapons. I mean, I think Trump is an idiot and a buffoon, a total Iran hawk, blah, 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 blah. But, Trump has waited in terms of carrying out a strike to this point already. It's clear to me that at least in, to whatever extent we can give him some charity as a diplomat, I would say that that's an attempt at diplomacy. He may be throwing out threats. He may be saying all these boisterous things. They may be about to strike at some point, but they haven't yet. And I think they're leaving that caveat open. Trump said 2 weeks for some sort of negotiated agreement where they avoid this, because I don't think Trump wants another Libya or another Iraq. Furthermore, there's always this, other aspect of things where if we assume we do dodge this bullet for now, there is going to be another administration coming in when Trump's term ends. And it could easily be a Democratic administration, one that's not as favorable to Israel. All U.S. administrations generally are, but not as much as Trump, not as much willing to give the green light on everything, and might be more willing to negotiate with Iran in more favorable terms. I'm sure the Iranians have all of this in their calculus as well. So I don't think it's like they're just absolutely going to develop a nuclear weapon. There's no way around it.
Okay, so a couple things before we get into it, right? And I need to make a little money, so I'm going to read some of my super chats. Then I'm going to hand the mic to Noah because I think through this discussion, right, I'm wondering if you've been convinced about the immediacy of Iran being able to generate a nuke, and if your opinion has changed from there. And then we're going to give it to Counterpoints, and we're going to go from there. Okay, Cameraman 502 for $10. Thank you for the $10. Says, Iran is not trying to score a touchdown. They're just walking the ball down the field and are in the red zone. But they claim to stop trying when they were on their own 30-yard line. Thank you for the $10. $20 from Grassroots Hegemon to say, if the question is how far should we go to cripple Iran, the answer is yes. You don't create 60% enriched uranium for any reason beyond creating nuclear weapons. Worked with Westinghouse for a while, 5% is max for domestic. Thank you for the $20. $5 more from Cameraman 502 says, it is less difficult to enrich uranium from 60 to 90% than it is from natural uranium to 10%. U235. Thank you. $20 from Grassroots Hegemon. By the way, you don't have to get a great warhead and ideal enrichment. A shitty nuclear bomb is, believe it or not, still a fucking nuclear bomb. Just a 21 kiloton nuclear weapon instead of a 10 megaton nuclear weapon. Thank you for the $20. And then finally, $10 from Audacity to say, if I paid a hitman and they were successful in their task, would I be legally punished for it? Thank you for the $10. Okay, I'm going to give the mic to Noah, give his thoughts, and then we're going to go back to the panel at hand. Go ahead. You're muted.
Muted, brah.
On your end.
Hi, sorry.
It's fine.
Well, okay. First of all, I find Lycan's basic point unpersuasive. Because the idea that there's no evidence that Iran wants a nuclear bomb seems directly contradicted by the quotes that Pathfinder said from the IAEA. And, which are perfectly consistent with common sense, where there's no reason for Iran not to want a nuclear bomb as soon as it can. So the fact that Pathfinder's quote from the IAEA says that Iran's close to having a nuclear bomb seems consistent with what our prior should be, and from experts. And so I don't trust Tulsi Gabbard. I trust Tulsi Gabbard about as far as I can throw her, which is not far because she's in another state. So anyway, I don't trust Tulsi Gabbard for shit, so I don't trust that. However, all this is to say that I'm still pretty unsure about two things. Number one, Counterpoints' argument that Iran is like days or weeks away from a nuclear bomb is surprise. I don't know if I believe that, especially now with Israel having blown up some of their stuff. We don't really know how much Israel has been able to degrade that or will in the coming days. And so I think that, I would not, I haven't yet been convinced that Iran, I am convinced that Iran wants a nuclear bomb, which makes sense because I would if I were them, but I'm convinced that they do. But then as for how close they are to getting it, I am not yet convinced of that. And the second thing I'm not yet convinced of is whether or not Israel really needs American help to stop Iran from getting a nuclear bomb anytime soon, destroying their current program. So I say that I'm not ready to say like, yeah, let's go bomb them. I'm definitely not. However, I do think that the idea that Iran is gonna just decide, oh, we don't want a nuke, is silly, and I don't buy it. So that's where I am right now.
Okay. Counterpoints, you've been wanting to get in for a little bit. I'm going to give you the mic and let you get in. Go ahead.
Yeah. So if we can, the thing that I've taken away so far that I'm going to add into my consideration after I leave the panel is whether or not Iran is more of a rational actor than we've given them credit for. However, I think there's plenty of there's plenty of evidence for. You're saying like, oh, this is this evidence of good faith, and this is this deal, and this is that deal, and here's where America's been bad, and all that kind of stuff. That doesn't change some facts on the ground, like Iran spending $1 billion a year on supporting terrorist orgs. Also, Iran attacking coalition forces during the Iraq War. Also, them supporting the Houthis, which are in Saudi Arabia's backdoor. And effectively, if you look at a map of where the world's petroleum is, it's like 1/3 in Venezuela, which is difficult to access because of the crude density, 1/3 in Saudi Arabia, and 1/3 in Iran. So Iran also supports, China and supports Russia. And so it's kind of the energy source of maybe not our enemies, but definitely our rivals. And Russia, in my opinion, is a kleptocratic, oligarchical, murderous shithole. Same thing with China, where they have created one of the most dystopian police states on the planet, where effectively you want some 1984 Blade Runner fucking bullshit. That's going to be China in 50 years. They're going to have all the technology in the world and all the capacity to suppress their dissidents, and we're not going to be able to stop them because they're going to be so economically powerful. They actually succeeded where like Nazi Germany failed. So that's going to be pretty fucked up. So I don't know how I feel about unratcheting the pressure on these people. One more point, and then I'll yield the floor, is basically like, we were told, let's not fuck with Syria because we're going to piss off Russia because they have a naval base in Tarsus. We were told, don't fuck with Ukraine. Ukraine's going to fall apart. The second that Russia sneezes, Ukraine is going to fall apart. We've been told that the Middle East and North Africa is going to be irreparable for generations. Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Syria does have a coalition government that seems to be putting together a game plan in order to become economically and socially vibrant within the next few generations. And Iraq, like I said earlier, has Iraqi citizens who are basically saying like, yeah, I was alive during Saddam and this is better. So that's where I'm nowhere near as doomer-pilled as you, where interventionism is just some black pill that's going to destroy the world. I yield the floor.
You just reminded me, and I'll pass it to you right after this, but you reminded me where I was going at with the 2003 agreement. Is that the government of Iran, for all the repressive activities and all that, is again not a Saddam or Assadist type regime. Like, for instance, the guy who was able to actually furnish the offer in 2003, again, defunding of Hezbollah, dismantling of Hezbollah, Hamas, nuclear shit, all that. It was a radical reformer. And you do not get to run for office in Iran until you get approved by a fucking council, right? But the Ayatollah is a pragmatist, and the Ayatollah recognizes the will of the people and the betterment of the nation. So again, hey, we need economic help, or we need this or that or whatever. They take those actions, and they will allow different people, whether it's a radical reformer or a moderate conservative, et cetera, to come in. They will get elected, but they're not just like little puppets that get to do the dancing of the Ayatollah.
Who is this guy, by the way?
Where do you draw the line on that, though, when you have things like obviously Iranian dissidents getting executed, homosexuals getting executed, and then women getting executed?
Again, I am sorry. I felt like I gave enough deference to the fact that there are civil and human rights issues within Iran. I did that. My point is,
but do you just let them function because they're pragmatists?
Well, first of all, yes, we don't go. If we want to go into every single country and fucking decapitate their governments because they do this shit, we got a lot of war ahead of us. Okay, so back to my point. We go is the question is not whether or not we should go in and save the fucking people of Iran. The question is whether or not that government can be worked with to de-escalate the situation. They have shown time and time again. In 2003, it was a fucking radical reformer. In 2015, it was a moderate conservative. In 2000 fucking whatever, one of the more recent dudes, he was literally elected as a signal that, like, hey, despite you guys fucking us over on the JCPOA, despite the fact that the United States is the untrustworthy party in this fucking situation because of the history of the last 22 years, we are willing to again work with you. So yes, Iran has shown with that in allowing the IAEA fuckers in to come do their shit, their adherence to the fucking agreement of the JCPOA, they have shown time and time again they are willing to work with us. And there is no intelligence, there is no credible anything right now that says that they aren't willing to still do that.
Hold on.
And to that, I either yield the floor to him or the dude with the fucking...
Let me say.
Yeah, I do want to hear from Jay real quick, but like we keep talking about Iran as if they haven't been escalating tensions in the Middle East for my fucking lifetime, right? At least, right? They are pouring gas on all these fires to destabilize their enemies in the region because that's in their national interest.
Deter.
You don't think that they're doing that?
According to the 2019 Defense Department memo that was released, they fund proxies as a form of deterrence against Israeli aggression. Go fucking read it. I got it right here, and I'll point
what
it.
was October? How was that a defensive move against Israeli aggression? What were they trying to preempt?
Because
Iran didn't plan October 7th.
Well, Hamas did.
Yeah, they just
Hamas
financed
is an extension.
to millions of tens of millions of dollars.
I want to get back. Hold on.
Iran planned October 7th.
First of all, we can discuss that if you want, but that's not relevant to the point that I was making. What I'm asking is, in what way was October 7th a defense? What were they trying to preempt with that?
In what way is that? In what way is that relevant?
You can't ask
that has nothing to do with Iran.
Or the other point.
Because his point, Wick's point, was that Iran and its proxies have been making offensive moves that destabilize the region. And
yes,
what I'm
you're
saying is
that they funded Hamas in order for October 7th to happen.
Right?
You're saying that
projecting power. They're projecting power throughout the region. That's the point. So while some of their proxies, Hamas in this case, might do
it's a
things
destabilizing
that
effect. Their power projection is destabilizing.
It doesn't mean it's an offensive move. Projecting power is something that they do to shore up the region and use as a means of negotiating with Israel.
October 7th was a negotiating tactic?
No, you fucking idiot. They didn't plan
What is the point that you're making?
7th. They didn't plan October 7th.
I understand that, but the point that Wick was making is very simple. The point that Wick was making was that Iran and its proxies cause destabilization in the region.
In the Middle East and Israel and the United States.
That's fine. But that's not the point. You need to address the
It
claim on its merits. You need to address the claim that is being made.
Wick, was the point you were making? Was it that Iran is intentionally pouring gasoline to make sure the Middle East blows up? Was that the point you were making?
To destabilize their enemies, because of course that's what we do.
Again, destabilize
that's what they
and
do.
deter
That's
are
what
two
all
different
major
things.
powers try to do to some extent.
Destabilize and deter are two different things, right?
Sometimes you can deter people from fucking with you if they recognize that if they do, you'll destabilize them. And this is what they've been doing. They give money to Hezbollah. This is just true. Hold on. This is just a fact claim that you were making that you're just wrong on. There's fact. We know for a fact that they fund money into organizations, Hezbollah, Hamas, and other proxy things that act as destabilizing forces.
How is Israel
in the regions
destabilized?
They operate.
How is Israel
destabilized? Do you not think that Houthi has been a destabilizing force in Yemen?
Destabilize in what way? They don't fund these. First of all,
I can do this.
First of all, the fucking Houthis are doing all their bullshit to try to fucking court.
Hold on,
these are the Houthis are trying to do all their showboat shit so they can get funding from Iran and all that stuff. But Iran is funding these proxies in order to deter violence. Israel shoots rockets at fucking Iran. The Houthis shoot fucking rockets at Israel. 2006 validated. By the way, this has been going on
into the conversation. We can have another debate on this if you want, but I just want to make sure that like other people get the time. I'll let Counterpoints deal with it.
If Iran wanted to destabilize Israel using a proxy, they would have attacked with Hezbollah, who is far more better armed than
I don't know what you think had been happening since October 7th.
Prior to October 7th.
Also, Hezbollah is fucking is grown and has much more legitimacy in fucking Lebanon than they had before, and so they are.
Was that before or after they blew off their ass cheeks?
For which part? I'm sorry. The point is that they.
Anyway, well, hold on. May I? Because I feel like we're coming at it from two different moral systems. Okay. So what's going on right now, as far as I can tell, is Lycan and Non-Smoker are evaluating the world stage, and they're looking at who is the worst actor. Non-Smoker explicitly has said that he believes the United States is the worst actor, therefore he wants to see their...
the great Satan.
There you go. And then Lycan, while he hasn't said the U.S. is the great Satan, he has said that he's more evaluating it from I would say a relatively neutral perspective, where he's trying to evaluate rights and wrongs, violence, and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to tell you straight up, I am biased towards the United States. I am biased towards liberal democracy. I am biased towards republicanism and mixed economy capitalism. I just am. And not just that your calculation is different than mine, okay? And also I think it's different than Iran's as well, by the way. Because when it comes to the Houthis, they're not saying, oh, are the Houthis good or bad for Yemen? They're saying the Houthis are good for me. And so as a result, they're having the Houthis, who are causing the Red Sea crisis, which has caused billions of dollars of damage into the international commerce. And then not only that, they're also supporting Hezbollah. You said, oh, well, if Iran wanted civilians, when Bashar al-Assad is finally deposed, am I not supposed to cheer? Am I not supposed to say, fuck Russia, fuck Iran, fuck Hezbollah, fuck these fucks?
Hold on. Wait, so this is, you touched on, since you addressed this.
Can you guys just have a 1v1? Jesus Christ.
Sorry, I'll say this, and then I will.
I was fine for 10 minutes, bud.
No, but he's right. You and I have talked a lot. I've interrupted everyone a lot, so I'll make this one last point, and then my friend to the south can. I don't know if I'm oriented the same.
Hold on, I will. Okay, I'll let.
Hold on. No. Let me address what he's saying.
Yeah, address what he's saying, but I get to choose who talks next.
So, first is you for the most part you hit the nail on the head. I'm a huge fucking CIA shill. If we went to war with Russia, I might re-enlist, kind of thing, right? I am very much pro-American, but I do approach this from a pragmatic standpoint. I do think it's important to know your enemies. I think it's important to know the difference between a political militant terrorist group versus a fundamental Islamist global jihad kind of group, right? I think those are important. People tend to often think that if you're making that distinction, you're saying one is good and one is not. No, that's not how it fucking works, right? Iran, it does not have the ability to project power like Israel or Saudi Arabia in the region. Not like United States, who can threaten a fucking B-2 bomber dropping the mother of all bombs down your fucking throat, right? They do not have that capability. So they use these proxies to do that. My whole point earlier was that Iran is, and this is backed up again by United States intelligence reports and assessments, is that they do this not to wipe out Israel from the fucking face of the earth. They do it because it's the only way they have some deterrence force. And there is a historical documented precedent that they use it as a form of deterrence, not in order to cause chaos for Israel.
Okay. If you want me to believe that, they should probably change their state-run TV programming.
Yeah, I want to give I want to give the mic to Noah, and I want to give the mic to Jay, and then I want to hear from Non-Smoker, and we're going to go from there. Go ahead. Again, you're muted.
Noah!
He's getting it.
I don't know that I have much more to say here. I mean, I think, if I were in charge of the U.S. right now, I'd just monitor the situation. And I'd use, no friend of Iran, but I'd just watch Israel take a crack at them and see what they do. And then if Israel fails, and if Israel's attack peters out and they fail to do big damage to the Iranian nuclear program or regime change them or whatever the hell they're trying to do, and then they stop, they're like, okay, guys, we give up, we failed, fuck, shoot. And then they retreat back to Israel. And then Iran's like, we are mad that you tried to do that. Now we're going to get a nuke, then okay, we'd be like, okay, our turn. Don't do that. Maybe we could do that, depending on what Iran says to us. Whether. But if Iran is like, okay, guys, help. We agree to, please don't kill us all. We're going to give up all our nuclear weapons forever. And, here, blah, blah, blah. We'll give you all our enriched uranium. We'll mail it to your house. I tried that once and the FBI got me. But, no, so then, no, wear a lead suit, folks. Anyway, no, if that happens, if Iran's like, okay, we give up, guys, then I'll be like, okay, cool, you give up. Then, you're not going to get nuclear bomb. I don't have to worry about this issue. And then if Iran is like, yes, we have emerged triumphant and resilient and we are racing toward a nuclear bomb now, and now we're going to have one in a month. And then we're going to death to America, death to Israel. For real, guys, before it was just a slogan and now we're coming for you. Then I'll be like, well, guess not. And so then, bomb them.
Your enemies don't always telegraph their moves, though, Noah. That's what I would say to you, is they don't always go on state television and say, ha, 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 now that Israel has failed to kill us, I am going to create the death ray. I don't think that's a reasonable expectation of modern statecraft.
Anyway, regardless of the Iranian death ray, I mean, the Jewish space laser turned out to be real. They had a laser that could shoot into space. So,
and now
no, I don't know. Iranian death ray, it could happen. I think we should just wait and see what happens with this war. I don't see that there's a pressing need to jump in, because if Iran was a month or a week or 17 seconds from a nuclear bomb before, I doubt that they are now. I mean, their shit's all getting bombed. They have a lot more nuclear facilities than just this Fordow place that's deep underground. And Israel's bombing some of the other places, and Israel's killing the nuclear scientists and blah, blah. And so I don't feel like we're in imminent danger of Iran developing a nuclear bomb during this assault, at least not right now. So I think we should, there's not a lot of urgency here in terms of us joining the fray. So I wouldn't do it, but I do think the idea that Iran doesn't want a nuclear bomb is not credible. And I think that the idea that Iran only wants a nuclear bomb as a negotiating chip or bargaining chip, I'm like, well, okay, yeah, but that's okay. That's why we'd want them to, we don't want them to negotiate shit, because look at Putin with his nukes. Putin invades a country, and then anytime people are like, well, how about we resist this invasion? Everybody's like, no, you can't resist their invasion. They have nukes. They'll start World War III. You have to let them do whatever they want and rape your sister. And that's what all the chuds say about Russia. Right. And if Iran has nuclear bombs, you're going to hear the exact same fucking chud arguments with regards to Iran. So I don't feel like hearing those chud arguments with regards to every goddamn, evil empire out there in the world, that decides to conquer its neighbor, and then you can't do anything because they've got nukes, guys. And so I think we should probably, if we can, not let them get nukes, just as not as a moral consideration, but as a pragmatic one.
Okay. Jay, go ahead, and then we can open this up again.
Sure. Well, I think that, listen, I hear what Lycan is saying, and I think that there are probably some elements that we disagree on, but overall, I understand the thrust of your argument, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. Again, I want to reiterate, I would much rather have negotiations. I would much rather have a deal. What I was saying earlier before there was some verbal explosion was that, from my perspective, Donald Trump is not a reliable negotiator, specifically with Iran, which I believe that there is precedent for that. And that this is, again, from my perspective, I could be wrong, but it seems to me that this is heading in a pretty negative direction, and that direction is ultimately war, and we're going to have to pick a side. And if it comes down to just the two of them, I'm going to choose the United States over Iran. So something that Non-Smoker said before the verbal explosion happened was that he said that he doesn't think that Trump is impossible to negotiate with regards to Iran. He didn't get a chance to expand on that, and if possible, I want to hear more about why you think that, because from my perspective, Donald Trump is a fucking garbage negotiator, just a total train wreck of a negotiator, especially with Iran. I mean, he's made it very clear multiple times. I mean, obviously he can fucking flip flop however he wants, but he has been relatively consistent in saying, listen, my deal isn't a deal. My offer isn't an offer. It's my position. My position is you get no enrichment, you have no uranium, you have no nuclear, anything whatsoever. That's the fucking offer. And if you don't like it, you can kick rocks. That's obviously not a negotiation. So if you think that Trump is more amenable for negotiations than I think he is, I'm totally willing to hear that. But I don't I don't understand how you can make that claim.
Non-smoker, can you elaborate for us, sir?
I mean, yeah, I had a totally other thing I wanted to say, but just on the
You can
Trump
get that
point, I
too,
mean,
right.
I think the point that I was trying to make is that Trump is hesitant in carrying out a strike because he doesn't want another Iraq and he doesn't want another Libya in Iran. He knows that and I think anybody with common sense would know that it's not going to end with one strike, one bunker busting bomb, destroying Fordo or any of these other nuclear enrichment sites, and then dust our hands off. We're good there, right? I think it's a lot more complicated than that. My point, though, is that Trump is hesitating mostly because he thinks there's got to be some room for negotiation here. You're right that Trump is a flip-flopper, and that's, he would call himself a deal maker. Do I think he's a great politician or even a good, competent diplomat? No, I think he's a fucking idiot. But sometimes you can derp your way into things. Look at the North Korea thing, which, yeah, it hasn't had a lasting, ensured peace for the region, but it definitely, those diplomatic overtures to North Korea at the time were really meaningful. It provided some hope. It definitely, I would say put off the threat of like an imminent war, which seemed like we were headed towards in 2017. So I don't know. Does that answer the question? Do you want to go back and forth with that, or can I make?
Well,
the other
yeah.
point?
I'd like to talk about that a little bit because it does definitely address what I was saying. But I think that there are some differences with regards to these negotiations and what was going on in Korea at that time. For one, I think that Donald Trump is a lot more off the fucking handle in this term than he was in his first term, and I think that specifically that comes down to the people that are surrounding him. And there's a lot of conflicting information, but from what we understand, Donald Trump is literally getting counsel from some fucking moron general specifically because he's ripped. As far as we understand, credible reporting is saying that the only person that is giving Donald Trump serious counsel on how he should deal with Iran is a general that he likes because he's ripped and has the like aesthetic of a military guy. So I understand your point, and I don't think that it's entirely dismissible. However, I think history as well as current circumstance overwhelmingly supports the claim that Donald Trump has a position. His position is Iran can go fuck itself, and if Iran doesn't meet that criteria, then it's Moab time. So I mean, I think that Donald Trump isn't actually trying to negotiate. I think you're right. I think he is hesitant to push the trigger because he doesn't want like a prolonged or a protracted conflict. But I don't think that he's being held back because of like some sagely wisdom or counsel on anybody's end or just in his own mind. I think he's just essentially kicking the can down the road, and that to me it seems essentially inevitable that he's going to say fuck it and pull the trigger.
Although I think that kind of goes to non-smoker's point, though, which is effectively that like this hesitation is because he doesn't want to own a collapsed Iran. Because if you look at like all of the criticisms for the past 2 decades where neocons fucked up in Iraq, neocons fucked us up with this exorbitant budget, neocons got tens of thousands of your kids killed. And so as a result, if he drops a bomb in Iran, he has to own whatever happens next. So if he drops a bomb, destroys a nuclear capacity, awesome. But if he drops another bomb, kills the Ayatollah, destabilizes Iran, hundreds of thousands of dead people, random terrorist attacks in Europe and the United States in response, then he owns that shit too.
Well,
I think they just bomb U.S. bases. If they just bomb U.S. bases and kill U.S. military personnel,
well, they hit the Iraq bases, and we didn't really give too much of a shit.
Yeah,
can I just respond?
Yeah, but I think non-smoker had another point he wanted to get to, and I want to make sure he gets that chance.
Yeah, I look, just not to, I don't know, whatever, because we're going in different directions now, but I just wanted to mention about the proxies and this whole notion that Iran has destabilized the Middle East due to their support of their proxies. And I want to point something out. All of Iran's proxies developed independently of Iran. The Houthis, for example, Ansar Allah were active in Yemen for years before the Iranians began supporting them. And they didn't even begin significant support until the Saudi Arabia got involved in the Yemeni conflict. All of these different proxies are definitely a means for Iran to project power. It's definitely meant as a deterrent. If it were meant to be an active, threat, something that they wanted to attack Israel with, that's why I brought up Hezbollah before. They'd probably be better suited to do that, or just to attack Israel directly. I think that'd be much more effective if the goal was just destabilizing the region for the hell of it or whatever. I think, if anything, Iran is responding to an American foreign policy, as we saw with the Iraq War, to destabilize the region, and an Israeli foreign policy, which really started under Benjamin Netanyahu in the mid-90s, which started with the Clean Break Memo, which basically described, the Middle East as this place where Israel had a lot of hostile neighbors, and the way to deal with them was not peace for land, giving away land that the Israelis took, like the Golan Heights or anything like that. It was dealing with their enemies aggressively, putting them in their place. They called it peace for peace. And the people who helped Netanyahu draft that document, or drafted that document for him, some of them went on to become part of the Project for a New American Century, which was one of the most crucial neoconservative think tanks that went on to be the primary architects of the Iraq War. And also advocated heavily for intervention into Iran. Iran, I'm not saying they're like saints or good or whatever and perfect, but they're obviously responding to threats to their legitimacy. I mean, we haven't even talked about how the US and Mossad support Baloch separatists in Iran, support the MEK with funding, training, all of that stuff. I mean, Iran has, absolutely every reason to look at us as the destabilizing force in the region. I don't see how you couldn't see us as the destabilizing force in the region, us and Israel.
Yeah, if I may, the one of the things that I learned growing up, just I don't know, through trial and error, is that power abhors a vacuum, and so ultimately you kind of have to pick which hill you want to die on. And there's ideologies. Everybody remembers, what is it, the end of history, but there was another competing narrative, which was the clash of civilizations. And what I have found is that it seems like there's this like gentle push towards mixed economy capitalism and representative democracy and all that kind of crap. But then it's getting hollowed out by laissez-faire neoliberal economics. But then we still have our competitors on the world stage when you're talking about authoritarian communism in China. Even if you don't call it communism, that's what they call it. We have kleptocratic, corrupt oligarchy in Russia. And then we have theocratic Islam in different parts of the Middle East and North Africa. And so if we're left with those choices of ideology between mixed economy capitalism and liberal democracy, I'm picking mixed economy capitalism and liberal democracy every single time. And
Can I just make a point?
Sure.
Quick.
Please.
I hate to cut you off, but so by that logic, we're sort of beholden to then topple every single autocracy on the planet.
Over the next millennia, yeah.
Okay, yes.
But and how realistic do you think that is? I mean, I think
it's wholly realistic on a long enough time scale.
Well, the culmination of that strategy was the Iraq War. That was the first domino to fall, and what happened? It led to
hold on, is Iraq
but talk to Iraqis?
That was the first domino to fall.
Authoritarian. It
10
cemented
gift memberships from Audacity.
Thank
Thank you for the 10 gift memberships on YouTube. Really appreciate you, sir.
Yeah, if I can respond.
Yeah, respond.
So here's the thing that I like about liberty is technically I could read the manuscripts of communists. I could read the manuscripts of Islamists. I could read the scripts of autocratic fascists. I can read all of their books as a liberal mixed economy capitalist enjoyer. I am not prohibited. And so as a result, I can review and consider each one of these ideologies, and I can choose which one I want to become, and I will be tolerated within a liberal society.
This is such a stupid argument. Do you think there's not censorship in liberal democracies? Do you think that the liberal democracies of the world, especially America, don't have an ideological state apparatus or a media machine that promotes our values? Is absolutely true. They don't marginalize any sort of dissident views. They don't crack down on dissidents.
No, I love, but here's the thing. You're saying
you're acting like in these other countries.
Marginalization. I view the marginalization of communists as good,
bro.
No, it's not just communist. Like during the 2000,
And socialist, and fascist,
no,
and
no,
Islamist.
it's not just that. Like during the invasion of Iraq, like people were saying like stupid shit like they fucking they hate us for our freedoms and shit like that, which is just fucking insane. But
If
also
you read
during
you read Kutbub, however you spell it, he did hate us for our freedoms, and Osama bin Laden read and liked Kutbub.
that wasn't the fucking the MO for why they did that. But regardless,
authoritarians in the Soviet Union.
but regardless of that,
we supported Osama bin Laden to fight authoritarians in the Soviet Union in Afghanistan. So in the effort to stop authoritarianism through intervention, we've cemented and bolstered and given credence and trained and funded different kinds of authoritarianism.
Yes,
You've
there have
never
been
watched
downsides.
the 2005 film.
It's been
Lord
more
of
downsides.
War
Do you think the world is more or less authoritarian in the last 30 years?
I want you to hear what I'm saying, okay? You have never watched or appreciated the hit 2005 Nicolas Cage film Lord of War, in which there is an international arms dealer who supported both Iran and Iraq during the Iran-Iraq War. And whatever the main character is, Nick Cage walks up and he's like, how did you do that? Like, why did you do that or whatever? And he's like, did it ever appeal to you that I might want both sides to lose?
how'd that go for Iran?
Welcome to Real
Okay,
Politics.
I feel like your cadence made that sound profound, but what you said is not profound at all. I don't understand where you're
What
going.
you said is not profound because you said, did you know that we supported bad guys to fight other bad guys?
I
No
want to get
shit.
us.
Yeah,
I want to
okay,
take it back a little bit. I want to take it back.
That was a great line.
Can I just
made that sound
finish,
profound,
please?
but it was not.
So- Listen, just to put a cap on it, Wick, and I'll turn it over to you, dude. Here's my point. Your argument essentially is that we have this obligation to topple autocracy, authoritarianism, because liberal democracy is the better system. What I'm suggesting to you is our efforts to do that have actually bolstered authoritarianism in other parts of the world.
Lies.
Thus,
The world is more free than it was a century ago.
Game that's not working. It's a bad strategy.
Where's the Soviet Union right now? What's
Where's
Vietnam?
Germany?
What's China
Where's
doing?
Imperial
More
Japan?
liberal under Gorbachev than Russia is under Putin.
What's Japan doing? What's Germany doing right now? Are they fascist? Are they imperial?
Dude, those were the end of World War II, and in that time, you've seen the rise of an authoritarian state in communist China, authoritarian state in Iran, authoritarian state in Russia, authoritarian state in Belarus, authoritarian state in Turkey. Need I go on?
Yeah, you need go on because all of those forces have to
Okay,
moderate and negotiate
Libya,
with liberal
Syria,
democracies and mixed economy capitalism.
Lebanon,
Just because you have an
Saudi
ahistorical
Arabia,
analysis of
Yemen,
authoritarianism over the past 100
Somalia,
years isn't my fucking fault.
Sudan, Mali, Burkina Faso.
Wait, yeah,
Niger.
like look at every
saying
to your point, Connor.
Everybody
Look at
becomes mixed economy capitalist and liberal democratic overnight. Liberal democracy has failed.
Look at all the fucking times that we have installed someone. Fucking Pinochet, for instance. Like, we install these people and they become fucking despots. The Shah of Iran. Do you know why the Ayatollah is here? Because we fucking backed the Shah and helped overthrow the fucking Iranian government.
Was letting the Soviet Union go through
the option. It's their petroleum.
It's their gas. Was everything that did happen 30 years earlier.
It was their gas to fucking nationalize.
Your own country is becoming more authoritarian if you haven't noticed.
You're approaching it from a position of neutrality. I don't. We've already been over this.
Yeah, okay, well, look at what fucking happened. So everything that people want to bitch about from 1979 through now with Iran is the result of what we fucking did.
Okay, and it's the question becomes than having Iran bolster the Soviet Union throughout the Cold War.
Iran already gives cheap gas to China now.
The question becomes, hold on.
Yeah, no shit. And China's a massive fucking problem right now, specifically because of that reason, which is why Pathfinder and I are both okay with democratic regime change within Iran, because if you gut Iran, then you basically gut the energy support for one of the most dystopian authoritarian piece of shit governments on the fucking planet.
Okay.
What?
Okay. A moment. Dial it back because I have a couple questions. Okay.
I'm always angry, so this is.
We love the energy, or at least I love the energy, and my donos and stuff love the energy. I appreciate that. Thank you for the 20 gift memberships from Grassroots Hegemon, and thank you for the $10 from Audacity to say Connor using Lord of War instead of Charlie Wilson. I'm pulling Connor's historian card. Do it.
I thought he was going with Charlie Wilson too.
But my I guess the question that I have, right, isn't that is America always successful in its efforts to stop and to spread its interest? Is America always acting within? Obviously, I think we could all agree America isn't some kind of benevolent actor. It has its own interests. It acts within those interests. Sometimes
And
those
sometimes it
interests
does
can
evil
be
shit.
evil, right? We all agree? Anyone disagree?
Sometimes.
Sometimes,
Yes.
Sometimes it does evil
Most
fucking
of the
shit.
But when
time.
we
Sometimes
but when we look
those
at
interests
when we look
overlap.
at the overall
Most of
right
the time.
trajectory of the world since since the end of World War
Before you
II.
finish, I'm going to say no, but go ahead.
Okay. So you say no. You don't agree?
No. Look at all right. So Vietnam, we go ahead and get involved in that conflict because of our involvement in Vietnam and what
Wait,
we
I
did.
didn't hear the question. Is he saying America is a net positive or
He's
net
saying that
negative? Is
overall
the
it's a net
question?
positive. He's saying it's a net
Yes.
positive.
Yeah, I'm saying it's absolutely net positive.
And I'm going to say it's a net negative. So the Khmer Rouge doesn't take over in
crazy.
Cambodia if it wasn't for our actions in Vietnam. We tried to prevent domino theory from happening, but Laos ended up falling because of, again, we
What about South
helped
Korea?
further inflame this shit. Yes, this absolutely fucking happened.
We have to take moral responsibility for the Cambodian Khmer wiping out a quarter
you got
of their
pissy earlier about me not
population.
listening,
This fucking
Connor.
asshole with Mark running his bullshit in the back of his fucking camera with no
Nope, you've got to listen. You got to listen.
For America.
And then because of what happened after the fall of South Vietnam, there was the Asian shift that happened, and that Asian shift directly led to the China that we have to deal with today. Right?
Oh,
True.
bullshit.
Yes,
Mao was always fucking on the warpath.
It doesn't
Get the
matter that
fuck
he was on
outta
the
here with
warpath.
this
It
shit.
talks.
Not
It's
all
about
of our
the
fucking
economic
enemies.
power that he
No.
gained. It's about the
Like,
countries
you
that
have a
aligned with him.
fundamentally- I'm not done. You have a
I wasn't done.
fundamentally
I wasn't
You have
done.
a fundamentally naive perspective on geopolitics, which is if the United States extricates itself from world events, all of our enemies become
I didn't
benevolent.
say that. I am
Bullshit.
pointing to explicit actions where we
You
were
just
involved
said that
and
the
the
Cambodian
impacts.
Khmer was
On this
America's fault.
The fact that the Khmer Rouge took over as successfully as they did was America's
Bullshit.
fault.
You think
Yes.
Mao was just going to sit back and let Southeast Asia not go communist?
That doesn't divorce it
You
from the
think
fact
that they
that
weren't
we
going
had
to
an
become communist
impact.
and they weren't going to get into power and they weren't going to do what they were going to do?
You know
I
what?
don't
There's
think
a
that's
whole
just
lot of
'cause of
other shit that
Mao.
could have fucking happened. The point is that we had an impact on it. Again, the same way I said earlier that
No
Iran was
shit, we tried to
instrumental
stop
in
you, so
fucking.
don't put that blood on our fucking till.
He's saying
It
that we
is-
attempted to stop, we killed a bunch of people and still failed.
Well, no,
So
I'm
we
saying,
should have gone
failed and
harder.
tried to do
Yes,
things.
we should have.
I'm saying a few different things. I'm saying that America.
True.
I'm sorry, harder. There are
We were too
hundreds
busy
of
dealing
thousands
with
of
leftist
tons.
movements at home.
There are hundreds of thousands of tons of bombs that are still blowing people up today that are sitting in the fucking ground in Cambodia. I'm sorry, we tried really fucking hard.
What, Lycan? Compared to what?
They were not massacring the people as much as
They
we
probably
were.
would have just had a peaceful, mostly peaceful transition of power if it weren't for us.
Okay, so hold on.
The
You
Khmer
guys
Rouge
need
would
to
have
shut
had
the
mostly
fuck up.
peaceful transfer of power.
You need to shut up and you need to
No,
listen.
no,
for a
in
minute.
Vietnam.
Okay, no.
The
You need
Khmer
to shut the
Rouge
fuck
was
up and you
propped
need to
up by the
listen for a minute.
CIA.
You need to shut up and you need to listen for a minute. So what you're telling me, this is the narrative that you're telling me, okay, is when the Soviet Union came to power, they killed millions, if not tens of millions of people. Maoist China, when he came to power, killed tens of millions of people. But when Vietnam, communist
true in the second
Vietnam,
one.
came to power uncontested, they would not have killed millions of people. And the Cambodian Khmer would have handed
your
out
view of
fucking
history
hugs
is so
and
fucking
milkshakes.
distorted and divorced from reality. It's
No,
insane.
it's not.
What did he say that's
the,
actually
the
Mao
Soviet
didn't
Union
kill
No,
formed.
What
no,
did he say that
stop.
was
Okay,
incorrect?
The Soviet
I already
Union
I'm going to answer
formed
it.
after
I'm
years
going to
of
answer it.
civil war.
Okay.
Our bombing
It wasn't that the
campaign.
communists just went around massacring.
Our bombing
millions of people,
campaign
you
was a
fucking
giant
idiot.
fucking promotion for the Khmer Rouge. It increased recruitment to the Khmer Rouge. It increased alignment of the people to the Khmer Rouge.
Give a fuck in that
This
it's
is
on
like
our,
this is
it's our
fucking
moral
10th grade
responsibility
global
as a
history, dude.
Cambodian
Yes, it was an
Khmer
illegal
use
bombing campaign. We shouldn't have been doing it.
anti-communist operations in order to propagandize the masses, and then they delete 25% of their population. And you're saying that's America's fault? That's
Yes,
the
we
Cambodian
helped them
Khmer's
take
fault.
over. We helped them
You're full
take
of shit.
over.
No.
Yes,
We
So wait,
supported
I'm
the
sorry.
Khmer Rouge.
So-
That's absolutely
totally
true.
wait, so
warped
the-
view of
Stream is
moral
making me
So the
more
crimes of
supportive
Pinochet and
global
every other fucking
thermonuclear
dictator
war.
we
Hold on.
installed.
Hold on. Noah tried to speak, and he's been a very good boy today.
I just said this stream is making me more supportive of global thermonuclear war. It's the only answer.
You know what? I
Nice.
think so. Like here's my point, and we are kind of running towards the end. And you guys can stay if you want for after panel, right? You're more than welcome, but you don't have to. I'm not Hamas. I won't hold you hostage, right? But
Thanks.
my point here is that without America's intervention on the world stage, look at Serbia, right? Look at South Korea. Look at Iraq. And yeah, I'll say it. Iraq is better today than it was under Saddam Hussein. That's
okay.
us.
So what happened with Iraq? I think you're there's a big gray. When you say they're better now, there's a big gray area.
Let me finish my point, and then you can respond, I promise. Okay. I understand that not everything we do is successful. Not everything we do is good. But again, I think without the United States intervention on the world stage, that we would be living in dark times. You know what? You don't have to believe me. You can just wait, because we are losing influence across the world stage. We are losing power. We are losing the will to exercise what power we have. And we are going to be losing, unfortunately, influence to Russia and China in those regions. We're going to live in a multipolar world. And I'm going to, again, I will ask you to clip this, and in 10 years, if we still have internet and the ability to, live free, I want you to check it and see, is the world 10 years from now with less American influence better or worse than it is today? And my claim and my prophecy, if you will, it's going to be far, far worse. You are not going to like the end of liberal world order. Okay, now you can respond, and then we're going to get to closings. Go ahead.
In the 80s, we did something pretty noble in trying to help the people of Afghanistan. And while it was for our own motivations, which was to undermine communist influence within the region, at the end of the day, we were supporting a country that had been violently taken over by the communists. And as far as I'm concerned, did deserve liberty. And we did some pretty fucking cool shit. By the way, if you haven't seen Charlie Wilson's War, it's a great fucking thing to watch. But then after you're done with that, go ahead and read Ghost Wars, and about our secret wars in Afghanistan, and then follow up with Directorate S, which covers the periods after 2001, 9/11. What happened is that after we did our cool, good shit, we were done. We were exhausted with the Cold War. We had done our stuff, and we fucking left. And despite people like Charlie Wilson and the CIA and everyone else saying, hey, by the way, all those fucking Wahhabists from Saudi Arabia that they let in, these are becoming a problem. And no one fucking did anything. When we said, hey, we need to give some support to these people so the crazies don't fucking take over, that became a problem. And then you get the fucking Taliban, and then you get Al-Qaeda. We fucked that up. And then we go into Afghanistan part 2, and then we screw it up again. We know Pakistan is fucking us over, but we're kind of hands tied in the region and whatnot. We mismanaged that situation. We didn't have a clear, concise plan. We allowed Karzai to do stupid fucking shit, like not recognizing that tribal influence is actually pretty fucking significant to Afghan culture, and that's the way it needs to be implemented. So we fucked up again and again. And now, guess what? We have the Taliban back in power. We go into Iraq. You say Iraq is better now? Sure. If Iraqis are happier now, that is fucking great. What you do have to acknowledge, though, are all the people that fucking died in the process, all the terrorists we created in the process, the fact that ISIS then became a fucking problem. Who killed what? It doesn't matter that we killed them. The point is that it happened, and they're still in existence.
Matters.
No, they're still in existence.
If 80 to 90% of the fucking people are jihadist militias wiping out fucking other jihadist militias, then don't put that fucking blood on our ledger.
It is on our ledger.
Making their own decisions.
We should not have been invaded. We created ISIS. You have to recognize this. We have we shouldn't have. He was a stabilizing force. It is widely recognized. Hey, guess what? Should the Taliban have been part of the 2001 government reconstruction in Afghanistan?
2001 government rebuild?
When we had the Bonn conference after the invasion of Afghanistan, should the Taliban have been involved in it?
No, probably not.
Exactly. The people that have your mindset. Exactly.
No, because you're not talking to a historical ignoramus. You're not talking to some fucking 50 IQ.
And why are you fucking going against everyone who was involved and said we fucked up by not having them involved? We fucked up by not having them involved. The people who held the Bonn conference said we fucked up by not having them involved. I'm not blowing smoke by the fuck. I know way too much about this shit for you to fucking say that. We should have had them involved. We could not properly reconstruct the government. We created an outsized fucking...
Stay for the after panel, but we do got to get to the closing. Stay for the after panel. I'll let you guys go, and you guys.
I need to eat dinner. Sorry.
Fair enough, but maybe we'll figure something out, right? Because obviously you got.
We can always fight about this later, Connor.
We got other things.
Sounds good.
I suddenly got really sleepy. I'm sorry.
I want to give it to we're gonna close out. So first of all, thank you all for coming to the show. Right? If you've enjoyed this show, for whatever reason, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I know some of you love the blood sports. Okay, I know some of you do. And hit the follow button if you're on Kick or you're on Twitch. I really appreciate it. It really helped me out. If you want to donate to the show, you absolutely can. I promise all of the money will go directly to me to fund various hobbies and activities that I enjoy, and it will be great. So yeah, consider gifting subs, gifting bits, super chatting, all those things very much help the show. But I want you to listen as these lovely individuals give closing statements and tell you where they can be found. I have links to all their stuff in my YouTube description, which you can click on. They have taken time out of their days to be here with us, to give us content, to reward them with follows or whatever. We're going to give it to Noah first, and then we're going to let Jay have the last word. Noah, closing thoughts. Go ahead.
Well, I'm still not sure what to do about all this. I have no confidence in the Trump administration to do the right thing. But I think that Trump will probably chicken out and not bomb Iran. So I think that whoever wants Trump to not bomb Iran is going to get their wish. And maybe Israel will take out their nuclear program or their regime anyway. But yeah, no, I didn't see like super compelling arguments on either side. I'm sure there's one right answer here, but I don't know what it is. So if you like a guy who's not scared to admit when he doesn't have a strong opinion about things, you should go to my blog, which is called No Opinion, for exactly this reason. NOAHPINION. And in some of the posts, I actually even do express an opinion, but not always. So, good luck to our wise policymakers who are going to definitely iron this one out. And, just like they've made the right choice on all the other disasters of the past decades. All right, anyway.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I hope you had fun. Thanks for being here. Check him out, gang. He's a good guy. Lycan.
Yes, first of all, Wick, thank you for holding this panel. It was very exciting. I haven't been in the game in a while. Good to be here. In the 50s, we overthrew the government because they wanted to privatize their own oil. The whole Iraqi myth that we're just there for oil. Well, we did that for Iran, and that got the people the Ayatollah because the Shah was a fucking shithead. It was brutal to his people and pretty fucking shitty, but hey, you know what? He had America interests at heart. Iran has shown a history of being able to come to the table diplomatically. They have made significant concessions in the past, and we have hand-waved them. Iran has no reason to trust the United States, and it is incumbent upon us to put a deal in front of them that is both reasonable to our interests, but also reasonable to theirs. It is my belief that we don't get to hand-wave 70 years of fucked up foreign policy towards Iran by dropping a fucking bomb down their throats. So at the end of the day, when you have people that are saying it's a nuclear issue, but then immediately that same day that the bombings are happening, that we must support Israel at all costs in everything they do when it comes to this, and saying that the people are crying for regime change, no, they are not. The people of Iran are far less like their government than the news headlines would have you believe. So do yourself a fucking favor. And don't read the headlines and stop there. Read the articles, read the news, go read a fucking book on the history of Iran. The government is not what you think it is, even as shitty as it fucking is. They can actually work with the United States at the end of the day. I don't plan to support any action that is going to get us back to OIF2, Electric Boogaloo, with just a new flag over the country as we start to install our own government. So at the end of the day, I'm all for intervention when it's justified. This is not justified, and we are being pulled into a war that we shouldn't be going to.
Okay, thank you for being here. You can check him out. I put his links in my description. Thank you. Counterpoints.
Yes. So I think that what frustrated me towards the end of the conversation, but obviously Lycan and I will carry this on at another time, is the fact that I think that if you look at our sins, and some of them are grievous, I could highlight some of them, for instance, in the 80s, when we provided weapons of mass destruction to Iraq in order to bomb the Iranians with VX and nerve gas and botulism that we actually sold them, which was part of our casus belli for the invasion in the 2000s. I don't think that if I was a CIA case officer, I would be able to go to sleep at night if I knew that I was VX gassing 12-year-old impressed child soldiers on the Iran-Iraq border. I don't think that I would be able to sleep with myself. That being said, I do think that power abhors a vacuum, and there are ideologies that are competing for the souls of the world. These are largely liberal democracy mixed with mixed economy capitalism. This is socialism and communism as another competitor. And then this is Islamism and fascism. So there's really like 4, maybe 5 ideologies that are competing for the souls of the world. I will pick mixed economy capitalism and liberalism every single time, because I think it ultimately is the one. And I will put all of our sins against the sins of our rivals and competitors every single fucking day of the week. And I will argue about it in the most detailed and repulsive of historical terms, especially against communists. So, if you liked anything that I had to say, if you like Warhammer, type in Counterpoints 40K. That's my Warhammer breakdown channel. It's moderately successful. If you like my political takes, type in Counterpoints Politics. You'll find a burgeoning YouTube channel with around 6K subs that I am live on Tuesdays, 5 hours a week, 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. And then Monday through Friday, I'm live on something called the Valor Media Network. VALOR Media Common Spelling Network Common Spelling. Thank you.
No, thank you for being here. Check him out, gang. I have the links to his Counterpoints Politics channel, at least, in my YouTube description. And if you want any of the other stuff, and I recommend the 40K stuff, honestly. He does a great job. You can check that out. Speaking of dirty communists, non-smoker.
Twitch.tv/non_smoker. For everybody in the audience who doesn't know my content, please come check me out. I also host a radio show every 2 weeks out of WUSB Stony Brook, which I'm sure Noah is sort of familiar with if he's even listening. We are out here on Stony Brook, Long Island, out east, doing a show every 2 weeks, 7 to 10 p.m. On all the stuff that I like to talk about, including this. To summarize my points, I don't think, for anyone in the audience who's not sure, I don't think anybody here made a good point or a good case for intervention. I think that it's pretty clear that it's not popular among Americans to go to wars that are not necessary. Neoconservatism, I thought, was falling out of favor after George W. Bush left office. That's kind of what got Obama elected, and I would argue what got Trump elected. But it seems to be rearing its ugly head once again, and there's probably a whole host of reasons for that. I think one of them is the growing amount of influence that weapons manufacturers, tech companies have over the government. I think that the neocon think tanks are still very active. Many of those people are still in politics, in and out of different administrations, etc. I do know that the American people do not like war, and yet the government continues to push for war. That, to me, is all the evidence I need to show you that your government doesn't fucking work for you. So you don't have to be a communist to acknowledge that. However, you might consider becoming a communist if you want to talk about doing something about it.
Okay, thank you for being here. Always appreciate your perspective. And yeah, go check him out, gang. And finally, last but certainly not least, Pathfinder Jay, please.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me on. I do wish that I was able to just elucidate my specific points a little bit better and in better detail. But ultimately, I do agree with pretty much everything that Counterpoints has said. I think a lot of what he said in his closing statement reflects exactly my position. I think that the planet is unquestionably interlocked in a global struggle over the forces of several ideologies, and I think that any day of the fucking week, I will always choose, as he says, a mixed market liberal democracy over any of the other options. As Counterpoints also said, I think that we can put the many, which there are many, the many crimes of the United States up against the even the more numerous crimes of these other ideologies that are struggling for life on the world stage right now. And I think that as the unipolar world starts to crack because of perspectives that are offered by people like Non-Smoker and to a lesser extent Lycan, I think that we're going to be seeing a lot more violence, and I think that ultimately we're going to have to make a lot more morally difficult and tough decisions in order to maintain our ideological supremacy, which I do believe is absolutely worth it. I am a small channel. I am growing. My channel is Pathfinder 415. If you like politics stuff, please, especially abundance-oriented stuff, that's what I talk a lot about. Please give my channel a look and follow me on Twitter, or X, I guess, at Pathfinder Jay.
Do it. He was a great addition to the panel. I always like to try new people, small people, and so thank you for being here. I'm going to move all these people out. But the show's not over. I'm going to talk and I have some things to say, but I'm going to let them go. So I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
Bye, folks.
See ya.
Boom,
Parasocial love. Bye for now.
boom,
Yep.
boom. All gone. What do we think, gang? What do we think? Oh, I want it in. Look, I need to stop doing these panels that I moderate where I really, really want to say shit. But there comes a point, right, where people are saying stupid shit, okay? And they are obviously wrong. And they are saying things that I know are not true. And I'm looking at reports showing they are not true. And I just have to jump in. Because no, you're just wrong. There's a fact claim that you're making. I know that you were wrong, and here's the evidence that you were wrong. Remember, they said at the beginning that there was no evidence that they're trying to weaponize a nuclear program. We have evidence they're trying to weaponize a nuclear program. Thank God Jay pointed it out, and I didn't have to. But this is a report from June of this year, okay? From the IAEA, okay? So not Tulsi Gabbard, not Donald Trump, but an international organization that checks these things out. We have evidence. You may think, that's still not reason to bomb. That's fair. That's a difference of opinion. Like, there are some people who would argue that Iran having a nuclear weapon would help stabilize the region. I think they're wrong, but it's something we could talk about. But it's hard to talk about that portion of it when we can't get past go. We can't get past go. Iran is not a stabilizing force in the region. Let's remember, do you guys remember what it was last year, maybe the year before? They had the student protests in Iran where they were trying to, where one of their morality police beat a woman to death because she wore her head covering wrong. And there were thousands, about 10, 12,000 student protesters that rose up, right? That wanted to okay, we need change. They were disappeared. Many of them were executed. This idea that the people of Iran love their government and don't want to change doesn't seem to be borne out with some of the things I see. Now, I acknowledge that I am not in that region, right? And censorship from the Iranian government makes it hard to really know the will of the people. But I've talked to a lot of people from Iran, right, who are Iranian nationals who are either on the run, right, or, they have Iranian heritage, they have family in Iran. The Ayatollahs are monstrous. They're bad dudes. Does that mean that just because they're bad guys, we always automatically have to overthrow them? No. And again, I don't know if regime change is the answer here. I would be against regime change, simply because I don't know if it'll be effective, right? But I absolutely think we could put some more heads on foreheads on nuclear sites, okay, that they have. And this idea that they aren't trying to get a nuclear... let me just put it this way. A nuclear-capable Iran is going to be a threat to so many actors in the region. Remember, Iran sells drones and gave basically Russia the technology to mass manufacture drones, which are using to strike Ukraine. Okay, that was Iran that did that, right? Iran also sells, again, weapons, training, etc., to Hezbollah, to the Houthis, etc. Could you guys imagine the Houthis with a nuke? Because that's what you have to imagine with the nuclear capable of Iran. It's a very real possibility. Do I think that Iran itself would use a nuclear weapon? No, I don't. But they would sell that shit to the Houthis, who would. They would sell that shit to Hamas, who might, or give that shit, right? They'd sell that shit to Hezbollah, who might. To any of their other proxies. They would give it, get a level of plausible deniability going, and that's it. It's a problem. It's a problem, gang. And while, yes, Iran is a problem to deal with now, there would just simply be a much harder problem to deal with nuclear weapons. So, yes, Not under all circumstances, but I think under realistic circumstances, we can stop Iran from having a nuclear weapon. Okay. What are the rest of your thoughts? Anyone watching this? Was anyone able to avoid brain damage from this panel? Was anyone able to avoid some IQ loss? Lucky you. Lucky you if so. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Decent background entertainment. There was a quote someone told me, and I think it was useful. Maybe this will be the tagline for my show. Okay? The tagline of my show should be this. Wick TV. It's entertaining and it's frustrating. It's a good tagline. Frederick Methodist, 300 bits. I just got here, so you just got here late, so you just got a headache? Fair enough. Where was Tali today? Tali wasn't on this show. She's going to be with us next week. Oh, we got some great stuff coming up next week, gang. Okay. Next week, we got a ton of shows, actually. We're going to be having a call-in show on Monday. On Tuesday, we're going on the Sitch and Adam show. You guys remember then? Oh, Talibots is in YouTube chat. That's where she is. So yeah, we're going on Sitch and Adam on Tuesday. That'll be fun. We might talk about Iran there. We might talk about foreign policy there. We might talk about Israel. We might talk about domestic policy and ICE and things like that. We'll see, right? We are going on Thursday to the Raging Tomato show, and I'm going to be debating about ICE and how I think they're basically acting as a secret police right now, and that's unacceptable. On Friday, we're going to have something a little more fun, okay? A little cultural stuff. And we're going to have Julie, Sad Kit Kat. We're going to have Kirby Phone, okay? We're going to have Tuna Chip, and we're going to have Irrelevant. And they are going to fight for our amusement about hookup culture. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it positive? Is it negative? It'll be fun. A.K.A. Batozai with the $5 says, Wick, why do morons believe propaganda from enemy nations? Because it confirms their this is a reason most people will believe propaganda, is when it confirms their prejudices. Okay? When you hear news, and this is why I'm very cautious. When I hear something that confirms all my biases, I do more work to verify that information is correct than I would otherwise, because it's suspicious to me. Like, this seems to confirm all my prejudices. So now I'm worried that someone's just trying to target me and kind of give me some misinfo here. So I'm very cautious about info that confirms my priors. A lot of people aren't, though. A lot of people will be like, aha, I knew it the whole time, right? I was right the whole time, because we have this problem, okay? And I've talked about this before on my show, but I think it's worth re-upping. That a lot of people will look, at things and say, oh, you want to come in the VC, Lycan Cooks? Okay, I'll bring you in. Right now? I don't know if we want to do right now, but yeah, jump backstage and we'll talk for a little bit at least. We can have Tali moderate us if Tali wants. I don't know. Hey, you're live again.
I'm feeling called out. Am I wrong?
By Akei Batozai, yes. He's going to ask me.
No. By you saying that people read stuff and they confirm their bias and then talking about believing stuff from the regime.
I think you have a different problem, right? I do have an issue with you, right? And what you're willing to believe and things like that, but I don't think that's you.
Well, lay it on me.
Okay. I think that your friend groups have this kind of, I think they've whispered poison in your ear. So
do not be that condescending. God, I stopped myself from calling you a condescending fucking chat and try to be nice and just come in 101. But don't do that shit. Come on, dude. You're above that.
Above what? You asked me what your problem was, and this is what I think your problem is.
You have no validation to say that. You've never fucking talked to me about foreign policy, and everyone since fucking 10-7 has been saying that evil has been whispered in my ears, and that's where all this comes from. I'm clearly way more fucking educated on the Middle East than your average person, so I don't know why you would say that I'm coming in here and doing that shit, because I have friends that whisper that stuff into my ear. You need to qualify that before saying something really that fucking mean to someone you're pretty cool with.
Was that mean?
Yes, it is horribly condescending. Imagine if I fucking said to you, hey, dude, I think you're smarter than this, but you fucking listen to your dipshit friends way too much. Yes,
Man,
I am
sometimes I do.
undermining
Sometimes I do. Sometimes that's just true. Sometimes my friend groups lead me astray. That's not mean to say. That's just true sometimes with all of us.
I might have someone say fucking like, hey, this fucking car is really fucking cool. It's one of the best, and it's really highly regarded and whatever. And I'd be like, okay, cool, yeah, I believe you, because I don't know shit about that. But if I did know a little bit about fucking cars, I could say, nope, that's a little off. So on this subject, I know a lot. So I'd rather you make a point that you explicitly think I am wrong on than
I told you during the panel. I'll give you the point you're fucking wrong on was Iran being a stabilizing, Iran wanting deterrence in the region. They may want deterrence. That might be true, but you were using it to obfuscate, I feel, the fact that they have poured billions of dollars into destabilizing forces throughout the region, including the Houthis, which are, again, a major destabilizing force in Yemen. We could even avoid Israel
explicitly, and someone can clip it and tell me if I'm wrong, but you did not say pouring money into destabilizing forces. And if you did, what I did ask you after you said that was destabilizing or deterring? Because what I'm talking about is what Iran's motives are. If you want to talk about the impact it's had on the region, you're not going to find a significant amount of disagreement for some things. But as far as why they're doing it, it is to deter. And again, our Defense Department confirms this.
The reason that they are doing it is because they want to project influence within the region, as any other country would want. And in order to do that, they want to weaken possible rivals such as Saudi Arabia, such as Israel. You don't think that that's why they're doing this?
No, they don't want to. There's a difference between doing it. So what you're implying, and you tell me if I'm wrong. What you're saying
do you have
is
a
that
camera,
they're.
Or are you just gonna? Are we gonna talk to Lycan or what? Okay.
Sorry, I'm playing.
I want to look you in the fucking eye when I'm mean to you. And first of all, that's not mean to you. If I wanted to be mean to you, I'd just call you retarded.
Mean to this.
I was trying to look. I can't be mean to puppies, okay? But look, if I wanted to be mean to you, I would just say that you specifically are stupid. I'm giving you an out. Okay.
No, it's not an out. It's condescending because it invalidates my intelligence, my ability to figure shit out for myself. Also, yeah, it is just personally annoying because, again, I've read way too fucking much on this. Okay, so to hear that,
don't equate my statement here with the bullshit that you have seen on other people say. Okay.
But then I don't know where you fucking get the friends thing.
Because I've seen you interact with certain people online in things like that, and I've seen their opinions. Okay, and I've seen like you guys share a worldview. It's possible I'm wrong. It's possible I'm just wrong because I don't stalk you or anything. In which case you would be like, no, Wick, you're mistaken, and here's why. Which is fair to say.
I would just never lead with my disagreements with you come from the belief that you are susceptible. But hold on, we're getting off. We were heading towards a point. So you tell me if I'm wrong on this. When it comes to what Iran does, you were saying that Iran is funding destabilizers with the intent to destabilize Syria or Saudi Arabia and Israel.
Is that correct so far? To destabilize also their allies in the region. So, for example, Yemen, right? And Saudi Arabia had a big war, right, with the Houthis in Yemen. And Saudi Arabia is let's say a rival of Iran. I don't know if we want to go so far as enemies, but we'll say a rival in the region with Iran. Of course, Iran wants Houthis to be strong so that they can resist Saudi Arabia coming in and getting a foothold or keeping their foothold and their influence over Yemen. They want Houthis to destabilize that relationship between Yemen and Saudi Arabia. Do you disagree?
Saudi Arabia history is in politics is something that outside of the scope of Afghanistan in 2000 and with the wars in Afghanistan, I'm not super up on. But what I can speak to is when it comes to like Hezbollah and whatnot on the border of Israel, it has never acted as a force that its intent is to. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm not saying they haven't autonomously. What I'm saying is Iran and their purpose for funding them and their agreements with them are, hey, if Israel attacks us, we can't really attack it well, but you guys can do some fucking damage. And in 2006, in the Lebanon war between Israel and Hezbollah, that theory was validated as Hezbollah pushed Israel out of Lebanon. So yes, and again, our Defense Department says they fund these groups as a deterrent force. It isn't to take active measures, because there's a difference between having a reactionary force and an active force. They fund it for the intent of deterrence as a reactive measure.
Okay, $5 from AKA Batozai to say, Wick, ask him what would be convincing if he was wrong.
I always hate this fucking question. What would be convincing if I was wrong is
ask it.
I know. I'm not blaming you for asking it. What would be convincing is, again, like some information from a credible source that isn't fucking, Netanyahu coming to Congress and saying X, Y, and Z, but someone like, again, a Defense Department memo, a national intelligence estimate, something like that. Those are the kind of things that I'm looking at. I'm not looking at fucking propaganda. I'm not looking at what the regime is saying, even though the regime has said this. That's irrelevant. What is relevant is the fact that our government has said this.
Okay, so our government says a lot of things. First of all, I don't believe every single thing that the government says. But second of all, do you disagree with that?
Yeah, our government does say bullshit at times, but this is something that is backed up. This is backed up historically.
I might not even disagree with they also do it for deterrence, but I would take issue, and I haven't read this report, so maybe I'll have to read it at some point. But if as you were presenting it, and what you were presenting it as is say you're solely doing it for deterrence, then yes, I have an issue with that, because I can see the actions of the proxies that we know Iran has funded, and those actions that these proxies are doing are not to, like, they are actively destabilizing the region. Now, you may think, and you may argue, that the region needs to be destabilized because Israel and Saudi Arabia have too much power and they're horrible things. That's an argument you can make, right? But we absolutely do see the Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis, which are the three groups I'm most familiar with, right, actively destabilizing the areas that they are in.
I do not know of the significant destabilizing impact that they have had on the region beyond engaging with people like fucking Israel. What I will say is
Israel is a huge actor in the region, and they are a huge actor on that method, right?
Well, hold on.
That way.
You have to go in.
And Israel and Iran fucking hate each other, correct?
Sure, they do, but you have to look at any time that they have been engaged by someone like Hezbollah. Like what? Okay, Israel. Like what? There was like kidnapping, I think, that kicked off the 2006 war, right? Okay, cool. He kidnapped some people. Well, then Israel starts bombing apartment buildings and shit, and Hezbollah kicks the shit out of them. Okay, you go back to the 80s, Israel invades Lebanon, and that's when fucking Hezbollah really kicks off and starts to form up. And Iran has a huge incentive to start building that group up. And again, like I have to reiterate this point. This is not a defense of funding organizations that engage
not accusing you of that, no.
Indiscriminate rocket. Yeah, but I'm sure if I looked at chat, I'd see it. It's not defense of that, but
saying a lot of shit, but yeah.
It's important to understand why these people do it, because it's one thing to say, hey, they're giving money to terrorists, because it's one thing for Saudi Arabia to be sending people to go join Al Qaeda. Or Saudi Arabia being beholden to the religious fanatics in their country because they don't want that shit at home. So they're like, fuck it, we'll export it, right? That is different because they are, again, supporting like fundamentalist Islamic extremists that just want death for many people versus a political group, which again still engages in egregious, terrible fucking acts of violence. But there is a different reason. So if you look at that, and again, the fact that Iran was willing to dismantle Hezbollah, not just stop funding, dismantle Hezbollah, stop funding Hamas and other proxy organizations. It shows that, hey, you know what? We get some agreements going on, and where we don't need to do this for our own security because we can't project power like you and Israel and Saudi Arabia. They're willing to fucking engage.
This relies on me on believing that Iran would hold up its end of the bargain, which they very well might, but I do not just grant that to them, that because they signed this deal that they would act in accordance with this deal. I don't know if that's true. Most people, right, most big actors on the world stage will often, well, I don't know if I want to use the word often, but they will sometimes renege on their deals. They will go back on their word. And I think that Iran offering to do that, I would have loved to see it if they were serious, but simply making that offer is not enough for me to grant them that they obviously wanted that. $5 from Audacity, and I do got to make some money here, says, is Hamas flying into Israel on jihadi copters still a deterrent?
No,
because that's the elephant in the room.
Like
Hamas obviously didn't act as a October 7th wasn't a deterrent, right?
And that's why I keep focusing on Hezbollah. Hamas has bigger motives than
but they're
that
also
shit.
Funded by Iran.
They do get funding from Iran.
Training.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
I don't know if they get training. They get funding. I know that. I don't know how they get training unless Iran's fucking sending super secret squirrels into there to do shit. But as far again, Iran had no part in 10-7, so people keep bringing that up. That's a red herring. It doesn't matter. Yes, what matters is they do give money to those groups, and we can again talk about that as far as that point. But again, to imply that Iran is responsible for 10-7 beyond the fact that they had provided material support to to Hamas, beyond that, they didn't want that. They didn't encourage that. They didn't direct that. When it comes to why they would believe, why would they would follow, an agreement? I ask you why you think they wouldn't.
Well, when it comes to Iran, right, I think that it's hard because I haven't done a deep dive in a while on internal Iranian policies and politics. But you are correct that they have some incentives, or they could have some incentives to follow deals if they feel that people within the region are also following their deal. But here's where we have Israel under Netanyahu also acts as a destabilizing force. I'll grant you this. Israel under Netanyahu has destabilized the region as well with its actions. Can we agree there?
Absolutely.
Okay. Because this is happening, right? And because Iran feels that it will continue to happen, they are obviously going to respond by also acting to destabilize Israel and others in the region, right? So this is a conflict where both players, and we can argue tit for tat who started it, whatever, it doesn't matter. Both players at this point are disincentivized for keeping their word to the other because they don't feel that the other will keep the word to them. So even if the U.S. and Iran had a deal, that wouldn't matter because they would still fuck with Israel because they know Israel's still going to try to fuck with them. Does that make sense?
Again, the first deal that they offered was a recognition of Israel, which is a complete fucking huge detente from what had happened since the 1979 revolution. That was fucking massive. And also, as far as trust and all that stuff, I was kind of trying to make this point earlier, is that no one gets to run for president unless the council allows it, unless the Ayatollah allows it. And the Ayatollah does allow reformers and moderates to take the power of president, and it's not just just because, right? No, they get to actually enact.
And you might know the answer because I don't. Again, because I didn't do a deep dive into their internal politics because I was moderating today and not debating, despite me jumping in a couple times. If they elected or a moderate president was elected, and that president tried to go against the will of the Ayatollahs, who would win that struggle?
No, that's the thing. That's what I was saying, is that they don't get to do every single thing they want. They don't get to put a radical reformer in office. And they don't, they still do have elections. But again, the council, Ayatollah, gets to choose who runs. They don't get to do whatever they want.
So the Ayatollahs are in charge, de facto.
The Ayatollahs are the de facto in charge. But again, that memo got out with the approval of the Ayatollah. That memo that offered, again, all the fucking things you could want from Iran in 2003, that got out of Iran to our intermediaries from, I think, Switzerland. because it's either Switzerland or Sweden. They have an embassy in Iran or in Tehran. It got to us because the Ayatollah allowed it. So that is huge. Then the JCPOA, that doesn't happen. And again, remember, they complied with it to a T for the 3 years until fucking Trump reneged on it. They complied with that to a T. Again, that doesn't happen without the Ayatollah's approval.
So
the nuclear program, the weapons program in 2003 ended with the Ayatollah issuing a fatwa saying that nuclear weapons are anathema to Islam.
And yet, the actions that they have taken, see, this is a problem. They say a lot, but then you look, okay,
enriching uranium is not creating a weapon. And again, the IAEA
takes them closer to, again, the only
reason, it does.
The only reason to have enriched uranium is to build a weapon.
No, the only reason, if you don't read the IAEA reports and if you don't read the intelligence reports, is to make a weapon. If you read those reports, it's to have a bargaining chip.
A bargaining chip being what? What is the bargaining chip?
You are being, I don't know the proper, not inflammatory phrase for this. Yes.
To be inflammatory, I don't care. I'm not going to take it personally. Fuck it.
The idea is that we have fucking, hold on, I need to get a summon. The idea is, hey, we could,
okay.
I am. The idea is that we could get a fucking, we can make a nuke if we wanted to. We've got the stuff to do it now. Maybe we can talk. So yes, they could do it, but it's not to do it. That's what I'm trying to differentiate between. They are doing it, and our intelligence and the fucking UN is saying they are doing it so they can talk to us.
My problem, again, is they can change, even if I accept, and I don't necessarily, that they're being honest when they say they don't want a nuclear weapon, because it
I'm listening.
Every incentive they have, right? And any country in that situation would to be get a nuclear weapon, at least to protect itself from Israel, right? They would absolutely want one to protect itself from Israel. They don't want Israel to fuck with them, and them having a nuclear weapon makes it far less likely that Israel will fuck with them. So they want a nuclear weapon, right? So
no, I reject that part too.
Why?
Again, because we have 2 decades of intelligence reports saying they are not seeking one. They do not want one.
Okay, but
you're making assumptions. Wick, if you come to me with some actual factual good source,
did you get linked? And I'll link you the report that I have. I don't know if it's a report that Jay had, but if Jay says in his report, and his report is accurate, that they are pursuing a nuclear weaponization program,
I need to see that report because I looked at the
is wrong.
I need to see that report because I looked at the one that came out on the 31st. That's the one that was that's the dated 31st but declassified. And I searched the word weapon, and there was one word for it. I didn't see anything about the phrase.
I'll ask Jay for the report. I don't have it on hand, but assuming he wasn't just lying to us. If he was lying to us, then shame on him, right?
Well, it could have been a ChatGPT summary or some shit like that. But I pulled up the actual report and looked for that phrase, and I saw it.
I'm looking at the 31st one, right? Which and I again, the only things I see are the summaries that I read, which is still concerning. That again, on point 34, which is at the summary, says the significantly increased production and accumulation of highly enriched uranium by Iran, the only non-nuclear weapon state, to produce such nuclear weapon is of serious concern. Of course it is, right?
That's the only line in there. Yes, that it is of serious concern.
But they've also mentioned how they've been fucking with the JC, fucking with the monitors, right? They haven't been honest in their dealings.
Yeah,
and you're implying that they have. That they
they were up to 2018. They were, and they waited a whole year before they started doing other shit. Kind of seeing, hey, are we gonna get back to this?
Can you at least acknowledge that circumstances from 2003, 2010, 2018, they may have changed their minds since then?
No, because again, the reports are still that up to 2023 or 24, that they do not have a nuclear weapons program, and no intelligence, even Tulsi Gabbard's statement, which I just fucking
seeking one?
No, they are not seeking one, and even Tulsi Gabbard's tweet that I just read before coming back on here, where she's like, people are misinterpreting my statement, and she's trying to back up Trump right now. She still doesn't even use the language "are seeking." She says they could make one. She doesn't say they are trying to.
Me what he's got here. He did. Okay. I will link it to you as well. It's from the Institute for Science and International Security, so it's a different group than what he was saying. Oh, they were analyzing the IAEA, but I'll link it to you right now. And from this report, it says, although this report and the parallel NPT report serve to highlight Iran's multiple violations of the JCPOA and the NPT and its increased capabilities to make weapon-grade uranium, they obscure perhaps the most critical concern. Iran's nuclear weaponization program is steadily making progress out of sight of the inspectors in the world. The urgent need is to place IAEA inspectors at the heart of relations with Iran and reaffirm that Iran will never be allowed to get a nuclear weapon. That's from the, again, for the folks at home, that's from the Institute for Science and International Security. It's a report by David Albright, Sarah Burkhard, and Spencer August Faragasso, which they conducted on, or they published at least.
Yeah, so
June 9th,
again, weaponization here is, if I can not think of a better example than a really fucking cringe one. Hold on.
Take your time. We got no rush. No one's gonna. No.
Okay.
We got way less people to talk over each other. But go ahead.
If I was autistic, right? And just autism. You ever heard the term weaponized autism?
I have.
Like weaponized autism is when I fucking focus in and suddenly I am doing 10k DPS, which is fucking impossible as a warrior in World of Warcraft Classic, using sub rank 14 weapons because I've just fucking zoned in to such insanity that I am dominating the fucking game. Yes. The fucking weaponization doesn't mean building a weapon. Weaponization just means they have this material and they are taking it to weapons grade. There is nothing, again, in this report, from what I'm looking at, there is nothing in here saying they have a program to actually develop it. And again, U.S. intelligence has not said anything to the contrary.
But they are you acknowledge they are gathering the pieces that they would need to do so.
The fucking uranium, U-235 or whatever it is.
That's huge. That's the piece that most people
that is the piece. But again, Iran has complied better than Israel has, or Pakistan has, or India has, as well as other fucking nations that we work with. They have complied better with nuclear standards than they have. Pakistan behind our back built nuclear weapons. India behind our back built nuclear weapons. We still worked with them. We still communicated with them. And Pakistan has had way more fucking reason to arm those fuckers and be ready to go to war than Iran has.
Okay. Well, yeah, Pakistan and India both having nuclear weapons are kind of staring each other down. We have flare-ups now and again that we think, oh, is this going to be, or is one of them going to push a button? Things like that. That's another question, for another day on Pakistan and India. But for Iran, the charge is that they are building the weapons behind our back, or they want to put together the pieces to build the weapons. Now, you keep saying no, that they say that they're not. You keep saying that
our intelligence says they're not.
But can you acknowledge that even if they were, they would say that they were not?
Then I would turn to our intelligence and say, what are you guys saying? They're like, yeah, no, they're not.
Just so I don't have to, because we have a little more time and I don't have to take your word for it, and you could just link me the intelligence. Could you do so?
Sure. 1 second.
Just so I can skim it at least while you talk. Because wording is important here, and I haven't seen this intelligence. Probably exists, right? There is absolutely mixed reports coming, again, as we mentioned, between Tulsi Gabbard until recently, and President Trump, and then you have Israel. Here's a problem. I don't trust any of these players. So I don't trust Tulsi Gabbard. I don't trust Israel.
Right.
I don't trust Trump.
I don't.
So again, they're all telling me different things, but just from a common sense perspective here, and thank you for the link. From a common sense perspective here, they have every reason to want a nuclear weapon. So here's a quote, and this is from, the Biden administration has been defending his desire. Okay, this is complicated reason by suspension of his chief negotiator, Rob Malley, who was placed on unpaid leave last month pending an investigation into claims he mishandled classified information. He says that Iran is not currently undertaking the key nuclear weapons development activities that would be necessary to produce a testable nuclear device, according to the 2-page unclassified synopsis of the report. However, Iran is also pursuing research and development activities that would bring it closer to producing the fissile material needed for completing a
Which is
nuclear
what we're
device,
talking about when it
following
comes
decision
to
do so.
the fissile material is the enriched uranium.
So this guy did this guy get kicked out? I don't know who Rob Malley is. But
I'm pretty
it looks
sure
like
that
he
this
got
was a
kicked
leaked
out
report or some shit.
from because he mishandled classified information. Are we trusting this guy?
Yep. Yes, because the issue was that he leaked a classified report that said, yeah, they're not making weapons.
Okay. Alexander Wren for $10 says, at guy on left, that's Lycan, by the way, that's his name, says, would you be good with one of your neighbors having weaponizable smallpox in their basement? They said they won't take the last steps to weaponize and deploy it. They promise.
If I had if this guy was like someone what a ridiculous analogy, first of all. But second, I'm sorry, can we recognize that the concept of international diplomacy with armed nations is a lot more fucking complex than my fucking crazy neighbor brewing fucking biological weapons?
But you understand why it was asked, right? You understand at least the parallels.
I understand the attempt to draw a parallel. I understand the attempt. An attempt was made.
An attempt was made. Well, that's my claim too, not in that.
And that's why. And that's where
if I may finish,
it falls apart.
If I may please.
Yeah.
If I may please finish, right? Even if Iran says and even honestly means it, I will grant you that they honestly intend. You know what? We just want it as a bargaining chip. The possibility exists that Israel does something, or maybe U.S. pisses them off, or maybe Russia pushes them to it, or a whole host of other variables can come into play, which would change their mind. And once their mind is changed, it is a very, very quick process to turn the weaponized fissile material into an actual threat, whether that be a nuclear weapon or a dirty bomb, either of which would be devastating, right? And so I do not trust them to maintain their current position for eternity. So I want to I want to delay their having of a nuclear weapon for as long, or for a nuclear program of any kind, for as long as I possibly can. And if that means we go in there and drop a couple bunker busters, bravo, do it.
Hold on. So this threat assessment I read the other day. Let me see if I can find the quote. Because it was just on that. I was seeing people talk about how long it would take. And I think this is it. But I want to make sure I find the quote before I do.
Please do. But you understand that, right? That there may come a point a year from now, 5 years from now, where they're like, you know what? No, we have this. Let's use it.
Well, no. I think that if they did have one, it would be used for deterrence, not for offense.
You don't see any possible world where they would be changing their minds?
I mean, if fucking certain countries went off the fucking deep end and decided that they're going to still provoke a nuclear armed power, then yeah, maybe they might use it. But then at that point, is that not the reason they have it, is to deter that? So this assessment,
seeking this the argument is that them even seeking these pieces is provoking the attacks, because Israel knows.
I disagree.
Well, look at the strikes that Iran, and I agree it's in retaliation because Israel did start this round, right? Iran shooting their rockets and their drones and stuff. A few have gone through, right? A few have gotten through the Iron Dome. I think 37 out of the 440 that have been shot at them have gotten through the air defenses, okay? And that's not a lot, but if those 37 were, or if a few of those were actually nuclear capable, then all you need is one getting through.
Sure, yeah.
And that,
but again,
you understand why Israel feels that it cannot tolerate the
Israel feels it can't tolerate a peaceful Iran and has wanted regime change for years. That's why Netanyahu pushed Trump, who was already a hawk on Iran. Netanyahu was the factor that pushed him over the edge on the JCPOA. Why would you undermine that when we've got them down with their fucking nuclear program?
If I remember the JCPOA correctly, They were allowing for kind of civilian use
Yep, and it was confirmed by the AIEA.
And they had monitors in there and things like that. And Trump, again, took it off the table. But we live in the world that Trump did take it off the table, right? And so, again, if Iran can't trust the U.S. to keep its word, and honestly, it probably can't, if they don't trust Israel, which, fair enough, they probably shouldn't, I just don't see how you aren't seeing that there exists a reasonable possibility that they would use this in some sort of offensive fashion or even a defensive fashion. And I don't think that I don't trust them enough to have that capability. I think the world is a safer place if Iran does not have that capability. So if we need to go in and drop some bombs, let's do it. I don't want boots on the ground.
You know what?
I don't want any of that.
And this is what I was saying earlier. I would rather have a nuclear-armed Iran than dropping our boots on the ground or a decapitated Iran. I think that for the region, and I don't think Israel either cares or realizes that. I'm sure they realize this and don't give a fuck. That destabilizing Iran destabilizes the region, which causes those militant groups that have somewhat of a leash on them to go fucking, they're AWOL. They can do whatever the fuck they want now. They have no control. And people will say, well, you cut their funding. Yeah, these people will find other ways to get funding. And when they can't find funding, then their attacks are going to become more nefarious. Then they're not going to just be lobbing rockets from the fucking borders. Then they're going to be doing some more insidious shit. The Iran with a nuclear weapon is an Iran that cannot be fucked with. And this is theory, by the way. I've not looked into this. I've not looked up
Pakistan's
reports.
Been fucking with India, right?
What? Yeah, in Kashmir they've been
all the time.
They've been
India
in Kashmir,
with Pakistan. So this idea that a nuclear Iran can't be fucked with, what?
I'm saying that no. What I'm saying is that it could happen, but I think it's less likely to. And this is what I'm saying. I haven't researched, so I do not know this. I would theorize that if they had nukes, then they have less incentive to continue to fund these deterrent groups because now they have a deterrent. They have the deterrent. Mutually assured destruction is a huge fucking deterrent.
I think that it just incentivized them to double down on it. Because
that was what really pissed me off. Sorry. I'll let you finish, and then I remembered.
Well, again, it's equally possible that they were like, oh, okay, well, now we can just double down on funding these groups, and we don't have to do it so surreptitiously, and we could just fuck with people that don't have nuclear weapons around us, right? Much like other countries who are nuclear armed, like, say, Russia, do with states like, say, Ukraine, right? And they know that they can get away with it because, again...
Ukraine's a great example of what happens when your nukes go away.
Okay, I understand, but they don't have nukes now. And I think that Israel isn't in a position to... because they're not connected, right? You know that. There's no land bridge between Israel and Iran.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's other countries in the way. There's no realistic way that there will be any kind of invasion of Iran to Israel or Israel to Iran. They have to use proxies, or in Israel's cases, they have to use airstrikes and things like that. That's the only way.
Yeah, but think about this. Right? Think about this. Like, if let's say Iran's an ally, and I actually don't know too much about the relationship with
this
Iran.
Threat assessment you just sent me, by the way. It's saying things like Iran will also continue to directly threaten U.S. persons globally and remains committed to its decades-long effort to develop surrogate networks inside the United States. It says that Tehran intends for its expanding relationships with other key U.S. adversaries with the global South to mitigate U.S. efforts to isolate the regime and blunt the impact of Western sanctions. Like, the Tehran will continue its efforts to counter Israel and press the United States to leave the region by aiding and arming a loose consortium of like-minded terrorists and militant actors known as the Axis of Resistance. Like, all these things suggest that they should, under no wise, have a nuclear weapon to do that.
That doesn't say that at all.
I'm looking at the report right now. I can show you on the screen.
It says that, and also the fucking the Defense Department says they do this as a deterrent. Yes, we talked about this during the fucking debate. They are pushing against our influence. They're pushing against the influence of Israel, and they want to be left the fuck alone. They want the sanctions lifted.
They don't just want to be left alone here, right? They want to expand their relationship with the key U.S. adversaries, such as China, such as Russia, and others in the global South. They want to continue to develop continue to develop surrogate networks inside the United States and outside of the United States. I'm reading it right here. It's up on my screen.
So what?
So just because deterrence, the word might be in this report, does not mean
that's not the one that says deterrence.
That's
not the deterrent report. That's not the deterrent report. That's the report that talks about how
you linked me to this. This
yeah,
is something
that was
you
earlier when
linked
we were
me.
Yes, that was earlier when we were talking about how long it would take, and that I think that might be the one that says there are maybe 6 to 12 months from actually being able to build a fucking nuclear bomb.
Okay. This is
that's what I was like,
DNI from the DNI, so the Defense Network Intelligence, right? And this is from 2025. It looks like, can I see a month here? March. Do you think these are wrong? That this report is incorrect?
What part of it are you taking issue with?
So again, it has a table of contents, and I've ignored the China, Russia, North Korea, but we're looking at Iran specifically, page 22, and it gives a strategic overview. And in its strategic overview, it says things, I listed, I'll list them all if you'd like. It's a little bit long-winded, but it says Tehran will try to leverage its robust missile capability, expanded nuclear program, and its diplomatic outreach to the United States and U.S. rivals to bolster its regional influence and ensure regime survival. That's fair. However, regional and domestic challenges, most immediately tensions with Israel, are seriously testing Iran's ambition and capabilities. It says Iran will continue its efforts to counter Israel and press the United States to leave the reach by aiding and arming its loose consortia of like-minded terrorists and militant actors known as the Axis of Resistance. It says Iran investment in its military has been a key plank of its efforts to confront diverse threats and to try to deter and defend against an attack by the United States or Israel. And it says Iran will also continue to directly threaten U.S. persons globally and remains committed to its decade-long effort to develop surrogate networks inside the United States. Tehran intends for its expanding relationships with other key U.S. adversaries and the global south to mitigate U.S. efforts to isolate the regime and blunt the impact of Western sanctions. Tehran's diplomatic efforts, including at times its outreach to Europe, are likely to continue with varying degrees of success. And finally, the economic, political, and societal seeds of popular discontent could threaten further domestic strife akin to the wide-scale and prolonged protests inside Iran during late 2022 and early 2023. So I get your point where you say that they're doing it in part as a deterrent, but the way that they are doing it is destabilizing the region and it's threatening the U.S. directly.
How do you take that away from that? So first of all, the only thing that I just have an explicit issue with is where it talks about building cells in the U.S. Obviously, that is fucking not cool with that.
So,
but as far as everything else,
nuclear fissile
no, it says nothing about nukes in that, Wick.
I understand it doesn't say that, but work with me here. If we assume that this is correct, and I'm just going to assume that this intelligence is correct, and they are developing cells within the United States, and they become nuclear capable, you understand how that could go real wrong real quick for us.
Hold on 1 second. Sorry, right shit.
Yes, because I'm able to extrapolate and take two disparate pieces of information and combine them to come to a
but
conclusion.
you're making a huge leap, and it's whether or not they would use the nukes in those situations. Any kind of nuclear material, you're making that a leap. That assessment isn't saying that. It is saying they are pursuing X, Y, and Z to do certain things. And what I heard in there, and maybe, when you get a chance, reread it, it sounds to me like it's saying that Israel and the United States are the big motivators for why Iran is doing all this shit. They have the sanctions. They don't have any influence. They are struggling to make relationships. They have a benefit to make relationships because we've sanctioned them and other shit. The neutral view that Connor kept talking about. What do you see in there that you have an actual issue with, aside, again, from building networks within the United States?
Because the way that, reaching out to first of all, do you want Russia and China to be more powerful or less powerful, just in general?
In general, I would like them to be less powerful, and I would like to do things that get them to that point that
Iran
don't destabilize a region.
And funding them and giving them weapons like they do with Russia and giving them drones, that's bad, correct? It makes Russia more able to assault Ukraine and do other bad shit.
Yeah, not good.
So the fact that they are reaching out and building ties with our adversaries is not something we want to happen.
No, we do not want them to be building ties with our adversaries, but why don't we take any actions that help prevent that?
Well, one of the ways we prevent that is by we could do a lot of things to prevent that, but what we don't want is them making these allies with our adversaries and them also having nuclear capabilities, because that
Then
makes
so
them
we should
more
try to work
able
with them.
to, again, threaten our interests in the region, because in building these connections, it becomes possible for Russia or China to strike at us indirectly through Iran, right? And to use Iran as a scapegoat and say, well, it wasn't us. Iran's the one that did it. Iran's the one that used this nuclear weapon.
Again, we're jumping leaps and bounds when all we have to really do is say, hey, we could start working with Iran, and again, getting back to the table and negotiating with them and lifting sanctions so they don't have to consider these other relationships.
It could be, but I don't think negotiation is going to be on the table. So Alexander ran for $20, and then I'll tell you why I think that. It says, just to remind Lycan, as he said, Pakistan and Israel created nuclear weapons behind our backs, and we still work with them. Why would Iran do the hardest part and then stop there, right? Them having a nuclear weapon, in fact, might make them portions within Iran think that they'll have to negotiate now that we have a nuclear weapon, right? Again, it just goes to the common sense of course.
It's an assumption. Let's be really clear. It's an assumption.
We're all making assumptions here based on
my arguments are almost entirely based on U.S. intelligence, State Department reporting, Defense Department reporting, and the fucking IAEA.
Okay, but again,
and the history of Iran.
What you are linking me seems to suggest that they have
that they will continue to fund proxies and shit that I literally said.
Wrong.
You're acting like, wait, hold on. You're acting like you found something that I didn't say already, which is they do fund proxies as a deterrent force to negate the influence of the U.S. and Israel in the region.
Hold on.
I said that.
We got to go back to the beginning here. Are the Houthis, are they a destabilizing force in Yemen?
I'm going to say, yeah, sure.
Okay.
I, again, don't know too much about Yemen.
Them?
I don't know how much they fund them. Do they? I assume so.
Do. I don't know. I don't got an exact number right off my head, right? But they do. They funnel in weapons and things like that. So, regardless of intent, we know, and you've agreed to the fact, that Iran is funding the Houthis, and the Houthis are acting as a destabilizing force in this region. Okay, let's go to Hamas. You agree? Iran is funding Hamas, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Hamas, especially on October 7th, has acted as a destabilizing force in the region, correct?
Sure.
So we have 2 out of 3. I'll just give you Hezbollah, okay? I won't even contest Hezbollah here, right? Because, again, I'm not a Hezbollah expert. But 2 out of 3, regardless of why they are doing it, what they are doing, the actions they are taking, are destabilizing the region. And we don't want that. That is bad, not just for the region, but for our interest. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So okay, great. We're
wait, no, hold on. Sorry,
so
I'm dividing my attention between you and rating. Hold on. Say that last part again about our interests.
Okay. So we recognize, and you've just admitted, that in the case of the Houthis and the case of Hamas, Iran, regardless of its intent, has given funding to entities which are destabilizing the region.
I think that you're taking away some culpability of Israel in this regard. Now, the Houthis are, I think, making a bullshit excuse like, "Oh, we're doing this because fucking Gaza." I don't think that. I think at the end of the day, it's an opportunistic thing to get more funding so they can fuck up Yemen, right? So I don't think that that's really any fucking altruism there.
Do you think Hamas is altruistic?
No, I didn't say that, Wick. Why are you fucking doing that?
Okay, because you said, well, I think you're taking away
that
agency from Israel. I've granted you that Israel is also a destabilizing force.
Yes, and I do not want to get into a fucking IP debate, but I will say that again, like if fucking Israel just out of nowhere decided one day they were going to fucking invade Gaza, who defends Gaza?
Who, if
like, let's say that 10/7 didn't happen and they're just Israel just decides to invade. Who defends Gaza? It's Hamas, right?
Well, yeah.
Okay, exactly. So again, like,
sort of.
No, without being pedantic or any shit, at the end of the day, they are the military force of Gaza, right?
Yeah, but they're not acting in defensive capabilities. They wouldn't be acting to spare and to prevent death to the Palestinians, because they have stated that the deaths of Palestinians helps their goal and makes it more.
Okay, again, I don't want to get into an IP debate. I'm saying at a high level, you agree that they are the defense force of of Gaza.
So Taylor M9 says Wick just wants regime change so he can be the next Ayatollah. True. That's exactly why we're having this panel. I am going to be elected the spiritual leader for Iran. That is going to happen. We are using that now. $10 from Alexander Rin to say Iran can only benefit from building a nuke. What would be their downside? You do understand why we don't want them to have one, right? Other than USA bad. And then 0 fucks, 8-month membership. Thank you for being a member. Says Lycan is Hamas confirmed he uses canine shields. Thank you for the 8-month membership. But this again, right? I grant you, and I'm just granting you, Israel is a destabilizing force, does fuck shit. Cool. Okay, Israel-Palestine debate, we had that. Okay, we can rehash it another day if you'd like. But we're talking about Iran today. Can you at least understand from a realpolitik perspective, regardless of morality here, that it would be harder for the U.S. to maintain its interest in the region if Iran had a nuke? Do we grant that?
Sure, but why are our interests more of a priority than Iran's?
Well,
because you'd have to prove that Iran wants to like
honestly, this is
you'd have to prove.
You might not like this answer because if America's interest comes into conflict with another country's interest, I want America's interest to overweigh them. I want America's interest to win out.
What are America's interests?
When it comes to the region, we want to develop stability in the region so that we can increase trade with not only Israel.
And why are we even considering beheading the fucking government of Iran?
Because
if that is really our interest,
funded people who are acting as a destabilizing force in the region. Because of this funding, at least in part, has enabled the Houthis and enabled Hamas and enabled other terrorist organizations to not only strike directly at our bases and at our soldiers and at our ships, but also fuck with our allies too. Obviously, we want them to stop doing this. They haven't stopped doing this. And I'll just grant you that maybe if they were sincere in 2003, we should have taken that. But that ship sailed, baby.
No, it didn't sail. They started again with the JCPOA. Why do you keep saying that?
Okay, hold on. Is there an offer on the table that they are going to stop funding Hezbollah and dismantle it?
Diplomacy is complex. So while the more radical person that was in office back in 2003 is the one who got that deal to fucking go out, and the circumstances were right within Iran for them to send that deal out. In 2015, it was a moderate conservative, and he was able to get the JCPOA. But that's how those things start. The JCPOA happens, a little bit of sanctions get lifting, relationships improve, and then we can actually have a conversation about, hey, maybe you fucking stop doing that and we can do some more for you. That's how diplomacy works, Wick. And we have every reason to believe that we could have gone down that path. We could still go down that path, but not if Israel drags us into another fucking war.
Israel has, at least recently, said that they are willing to go it alone, right?
Let them.
Fair. I think that's a fair thing. But again, if they cannot, if the argument is Israel can take care of Iran's nuclear capabilities on their own, fair. That's fair. Then maybe we don't need to get involved. But here's my position, is Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and if all it takes for us to stop them from being nuclear capable is a few bunker busters, I'm for it. If we need more, tell me what that more is, and we'll see. Obviously, I don't think we should, under any circumstances, at least under any realistic circumstances, have boots on the ground or invade. I don't think we are there yet. I don't think we are near there yet. But
we're getting real close.
We've done airstrikes to great success before, and they have given us wins, and we don't need this all or nothing mentality. Like, if we strike at them, we have to go all in. We don't. We can use limited strikes in a limited capacity to achieve our goals in the area, and I think we should do that.
And then what's going to happen, though? What happens when Iran gets struck? What happened when Soleimani got killed?
Oh, what happened when Soleimani got killed? Didn't they? I forget. Tell me.
Fucking, they got attacked. Israel got attacked. Hezbollah started shooting rockets.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, obviously.
So what I'm saying is, again, it's not like a zero. Like, it's not okay. Well, they shoot some fucking rockets, or they bomb until Iran can't make any kind of nuclear material, and then it ends. No, it's going to be continued escalation from there.
But my thing is, it's going to continue even if we don't bomb them, because they have beef with Israel and they will not stop. Israel and Iran will not stop fucking with each other.
Israel will not stop. Let's be really clear. Israel started this.
This recent round, yes.
Okay. Glad we agree on that.
Okay. But regardless, they will not stop. Okay?
So why not rein in Israel?
We should do that too.
We should do that first and foremost, and then try to get Iran to come back to the negotiating table.
What we want to do at this point, which is take out their nuclear program. We don't want them having a nuclear program.
We have no reason to prioritize that over regional stability. And the act of attacking Iran is far more destabilizing than going back to the negotiating table. Again, we will circle back to the beginning of this argument, where we have no reason to believe that they are actually taking that fissile material and going to create a bomb.
Every bit of intelligence. I have just as much reason to believe that they're doing that as I have as much reason to believe that they'll uphold their end of the bargain. I have no evidence that this is the case.
You have every evidence. I've given a dog. I will give you a list of fucking books and intelligence reports and all that shit to build the clear picture that you have every reason to believe that their diplomacy is far more favorable to both the Iranian people and us.
Okay, I agree that, yes, if diplomacy would be upheld and they would honor their word, fair. Will Iran honor their word? I don't think that they believe that they should or can, because we've broken our word to them.
They believe it would be more accurate, in my opinion.
Have we broken our word to Iran?
Yes, I'm going to say.
So why would they trust us?
It would be more accurate to say Iran is more likely to need more assurance from the U.S. that they can trust us this time around, because this would be a fool me thrice situation. I think Iran's in a position where we should probably go with a pretty sweet deal to them and try to fix this situation.
I don't think it would be rational by Iran to accept a deal with us and trust us to uphold that deal. Not even.
So what is it? Is it we can't do diplomacy, or
I don't think we can.
Or we
yes,
won't
I don't
trust?
think we can at this point. I think diplomacy.
Okay, I feel like you've been playing both sides during this conversation. Like you've been saying that we can't we can't trust Iran to actually uphold a deal, but then you're saying Iran won't make a deal. Which is it?
I don't think that. I think it's both is true. So first of all, $10 from Alexander Rin to say, why not engage in diplomacy after making the weapon? Also, is it not the first step of building one to get the required weapons-grade uranium? It is, and obviously they would have a much better bargaining position if they had a nuclear weapon to do so.
But they don't want one, so they're not rushing for that.
Hold on, do they? So you mentioned, and you already agreed, that Iran doesn't trust the U.S. and would need a pretty sweet deal, right? They would need a lot of assurances. Do you disagree that them having a nuclear weapon would at least make it more, like they would have more assurances because they are nuclear capable than they would without?
I agree that is a rational, or I'm sorry, that is a logical train of thought. Okay. That is the extent of my agreement there. My disagreement is that it is borne out in history and intelligence and reporting and UN bullshit that is not the way it's going and not the way it is going to go, and that's not the mindset of the fucking regime.
I think that this regime, right, has poured, again, and I think we're circling the drain here, and we can have a further discussion later, right, if you'd like, because I do have to go eat soon, right?
No, it's fine. I got to get to raid. I'm fucking killing people here.
Sure. Just to kind of finish the thought up, and I'll let you have the last word, right? But just to finish my thought up, is we have seen for decades, Iran fund proxies that have acted, regardless of what Iran intended them to do. These proxies have acted as destabilizing force in the region, bringing misery to millions of people, right? They have engaged in acts of terror, not only directly against U.S. assets, but also against our allies in the region. And this continues and continues and continues to happen. While at one point they may have offered to stop, we did not accept that offer. And we live in a world now where Iran has every reason not to trust the U.S. to hold on, especially under President Trump, to keep its word. So under these conditions that we exist in, we know, or at least have strong reason to suspect, that Iran feels it would be in a better place with a nuclear weapon and being nuclear armed so that they could stop or at least deter attacks from Israel. My problem with this is Iran has, again, demonstrated a willingness to sell weapons, to give arms to its proxies, and it is, according to the DNI report, which you sent me, developing cells in the U.S., and they do view us as adversaries. And with fissile material that they could weaponize and that they could develop either a dirty bomb or develop a missile, that the risks of that being used go up to an unacceptable level if Iran has this. And I don't want that to, I don't care if it's not fair to them. I don't think they can have it. We're bigger than them. We get to say. And I think we should. Last word for you.
Yeah, thanks for chatting again, Wick. I think that it's that last mentality, though. We're bigger than them. We get to say. I think that's gotten us into a lot of issues, especially in the Middle East. So at the end of the day, when it comes to risk analysis for these types of policies, something that is primarily being considered is whether or not there is a likelihood. There's the means, and then there's the motive. And I do not believe, based on U.S. intelligence, recent U.S. intelligence, even with Tulsi Gabbard, who's fucking coming out to bat for Trump now, making it super clear, like, no, I did say they could make a bomb, is still not saying they want to. And so none of the reports up to the 2023 one I linked earlier have been contradicted, that they do not intend to, and every other report says they just want to make a deal. So deal maker in chief is probably going to fuck it up. They don't have a reason to trust us. He's the one who fucked them in the first place. But at the end of the day, I want to see a stabilized Middle East. I want to see peace. I want to see a two-state solution with a free and prosperous Israel and a free and prosperous Gaza. I want to see no more war. And more importantly than any of those situations, which are super fucking unlikely, I don't want to see another regime fall and it cause the chaos that we will have to deal with. So if we're worried about Iran getting fucking fissile material and creating dirty bombs and using them in the United States, then we should really be concerned about what happens when we create the next Al-Qaeda. Thank you for talking to me, Wick.
No problem. And if you're back in the game, I'll invite you to more shit, right? Okay.
All right, man.
So
I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Frustrating. It did feel like that Patrick meme. You're right. It did feel like Patrick meme. Okay, you acknowledge this is true? Yes. You acknowledge this is true? Yes. You acknowledge this is true? Yes. So this? No. Anyway, again, like, I don't know. I feel like the reason we fucked up, because you mentioned this during the show too, right? That the reason that the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and other ISIS and other groups gain power is because in many cases we stopped trying to influence them. We stopped trying to take people out. We stopped, right? America withdrew. And I think that the risk of us withdrawing from this and then creating that same situation all over again, I don't know. I don't know. It's unacceptable to me that Iran has a nuclear weapon. It's just unacceptable, and I think that we need to do that. Neem Sotul says, Wick, just popping in to say, I hate you, big dog. Keep it up. You're welcome. I'm joking. You're all right. Yeah. Well, hate me, love me. As long as you give me views and money, you're allowed to do so. $10 from Alexander Rin to say, are you not making a lot of assumptions to... I'm sorry, I didn't read this when he was here. Says, are you not making a lot of assumptions to assume that Iran's leadership does not want a nuclear weapon? How stupid do you have to be to believe that they don't want the thing they're actively pursuing? It's one of those things. Warpolar says, we should drop busters on all the nuke sites and say we will do so to every site that goes above 5% enrichment. Fair. Look, it is possible Israel could just handle this. That is possible. We'll see. Israel's been handling it. Like, a lot of people were telling me Iran's this big, the Lyan of the Middle East, right? That they're these big... the big dogs in the region, that they were going to be this unstoppable force, that if Israel pissed them off enough, Iran was going to wipe the floor with them. That doesn't seem to have been borne out. That seems to have been wrong. Israel has achieved air superiority over all of Iran. And yes, Iran, this isn't a bloodless fight for them, right? Iran's able to strike back a little. But of all the missiles that they have sent to date, they've sent over 440 missiles at Israel. Only 37 of those 440, so less than 10%, have gotten through. Would I want a world that was peaceful? Yes, but we have to recognize that there are other actors that do not want peace, that do not want stability. And I think Iran wants stability for itself, perhaps, but that means instability for its enemies. Just like we want stability for the U.S., but that means, in some cases, we have to destabilize other places, such as Iran. $10 from Alexander Rindestein. Seems like everyone saying that the Iron Dome didn't work was wrong, eh? I mean, look, it's not 100%. It's not invincible. It can be overwhelmed. But we've known that for a while. Is there anyone else who wants to say anything? Anyone else who has issues or wants to bring something up before we end for the week? Do you guys just want to give me some more money? Because I would like more money. Maybe go see a movie or something. Right? Maybe you guys can give me a little movie money for the weekend. I'm going to pass my hat around, okay? Do I not give you good content? Wasn't that the best panel you've seen since my last great panel? Okay. I'll pass my hat around, okay? Because I arrange the forces that are needed to give you content, okay? So I'm going to pass my hat around, okay? And I want you to fill it up. Fill my hat with your yummies, with your delicious, delicious likes, your delicious, delicious subs, your delicious, delicious follows, and your delicious, delicious monies. Okay. Lee Slipper says, I already gave you money. Go away. Well, we're about to go away. Jacob Bake says, next paycheck, I'll re-ask the question in Super. Did I miss a question from you? Okay, but Tozai says, go get money from Destiny. Why would Destiny pay me? I don't think I've ever gotten money from Destiny. Yeah, I don't think he's ever super chatted me or anything. And he's never passed me a check or nothing. Oh, because I could use it better? Oh, you want me to steal his money? I'm not going to steal his money. I'm not going to steal anyone's money. You're going to give it freely. What do you guys think of the... oh, here's a question. What do you guys think of the lawsuits? The Ethan Klein lawsuits against Denims, Frogan, and Caseytron? Maybe you guys won't like this take that I'm about to make. Maybe... I know we have a lot of... and I understand you, right? Like, we have a lot of Hassan haters in the chat. Brave, stunning, because I am too. But I don't know. I don't know about this one, gang. I don't know if this lawsuit's the right move. I don't know if it's the right move. I'm very skeptical of it for a few reasons. I think that while he is being very limited in his targeting, once you open this box, right? Once this fire is started, I think a lot of people are going to get burned that don't deserve to be burned. Okay? Because this will create a precedent, right? And React contenter, and look, I have no skin in this game because I'm not a React contenter guy. I don't do React content. I'm safe, right? But I know a lot of people do in this space, and I don't know. It just feels super heavy-handed. Like, if he wanted to go after them for defamation, if he wanted to go after them for harassment or any of these other things, I could see a strong argument for that, right? I'm not a legal scholar, by the way. I don't know if the legal ramifications. I'm talking morally, right? If he wanted to go after the people who sent like stuffed the skulls to his house, and he wanted to go after the people who were just making shit up, fair enough. But reacting to his content, I don't know. I don't know about that one. I am yet to be convinced. But we'll see. Kamikaze says my streamer bias is showing. It might be. Born One says the 3 he is going after perpetuate that behavior. Possibly. But when we talk about these things, we always have to keep in mind what happens next. He's successful in his suit. And yeah, screw Frogan, screw Denim, screw Casey Tron. They're cancer, they're gross. But then what? Then we have a precedent. We have a weapon, basically, that everyone is going to fear its use. And so you're going to see a lot less willingness for others to engage with other people's content in a negative fashion. It's going to have a chilling effect on criticism. I do think it will. Say, aka Batozai, I think if it was just that, fair, but I don't think that that's just the only effect that will happen. Andrew Steele, I know his claims. I am saying that even if your claims are crystal clear and your intent is crystal clear, that these things have a way of getting out of hand. That these things have a way. There are the law of unintended consequence. Do you guys not know this? The law of unintended consequence. It's a thing. It means no matter what you do, or no matter how tailored or targeted you are, there's a chance that what you do will have consequences that you do not intend. And I wonder if this is going to create ripples across the streamerverse that are going to be a net negative for the streamerverse. That's all. Again, I told you guys wouldn't like this take. And to be clear, I'm Team Ethan. I think that they harassed him. I think he deserves recompense. But let's go after them for what they did with the harassment. I don't know how clear I can say it, LNRD. If you can't parse what I'm saying, I don't know how to help you. You're going to have a bad time here. Do I think Ethan does any harassment himself? It's a far lesser degree. Far, far lesser degree. And he, again, like they need to back off, right? I've never, okay, I won't say ever, but I've rarely seen as much hate directed at Ethan for just the ISIS cold take you could possibly have. Okay? The ISIS cold take you could possibly have for the Israel-Palestine region is that Israel bad, but it doesn't deserve to be wiped off the face of the earth. And October 7th was also bad, and Hamas is also bad. ISIS cold take, okay, you could possibly have. And because he made that take and disagreed with Hassan, he has been dragged through the mud. He has been harassed. He has had people send skulls to his home. He has CPS called on his kids. Like, all this crazy shit. Because, again, he just gives ISIS cold take. So, I think that in terms of that, he's 100% in the right. He's morally in the clear. But just because you are righteous in the righteous side doesn't mean you should do anything and everything against your enemies. That's all I'm saying. $10 from Alexander Rin. They say there will be ripples, and they will affect some. People will try to do the same as him. However, they were blatant, clear, and stupid in the way they did it. Hard to hold up to that standard. And yes, it's very possible my fears are unwarranted. It's very possible. This is just my impression. This is just my opinion. I have contacted someone, actually, who knows Ethan. I'm trying to get on the show to talk to him about it because I want to have a discussion with it. Because there's a tension here, okay? There's a tension between IP laws and there's a tension between free speech and IP laws that I think needs to be discussed. So, no, Lenord, LNRD, that isn't the contact. It's a different person. We'll see. They said it's far from guaranteed. It'll be fun. I've asked Dan Saltman on my show. He said he's busy. That's fair. I'm a small guy. What do I got? I think it's down from my peak of what I was at. But we got, what, 65 of you on YouTube and about 20 of you on Twitch. 18 of you on Twitch, sorry. And I don't know how much are on Kick. At the peak of this panel, we had quite a bit in Twitch. We had like 35, 40. And then we had about almost 80, almost 100 a couple times in YouTube. So, yeah. I don't know, man. Okay, I'm stalling because I don't know. I'm not gonna see you guys till Monday, and I'm sad about that. I am. We're gonna raid out. Who are we going to? You guys want to go Mooncake? Go to Mooncake. I like Mooncake here. I'll see you guys Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern. We will have That Darn Kitten on as our co-host for call-ins. Peace out, Girl Scouts.